Hello there. We are going live and trying to figure out who editor K.C. Carlson was, who
Yeah.
died. Here's Wilson. Let's see if he knew him. Hello there,
Oh,
Wilson.
hey.
Did you
Hey,
know
what's
the
going on?
DC editor who died this week? K.C.
Mm,
Carlson at 68.
I heard of the name.
Yeah, I don't think
I don't recall ever meeting him,
I
as far as
barely know
I
the
can
name
recall.
even. He was there in the 90s. We were trying to figure out what years he was there. He won a Squiddy Award in 93, 94, and 95 or something like that. And he was editor of the Legion. I guess if you were editor of the Legion in the 90s, nobody really knew you.
I knew his books. I read those. I read those Legions. Legions '89, I think, was the start of
Right.
it or something. So I read Legion and the books around that time period. Is
Ah,
like the time that I read Legion and
right.
the again the other connected books, because Legion kind of had maybe three books connected to it.
Yeah,
And I read those because I remember that's when Timberwolf was a member and stuff like that. So I must have read the name in the books,
right, right.
but I had no dealings with that editor at all.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard his name come up very much over the years.
No, I don't either. When I looked at the pictures, it was like he wasn't recognizable to me. But again, in the '90s, there were so many people working in the industry.
Yeah,
Um, you know, the joke was if you were delivering a pizza at Marvel, you could have picked up a book to work on
yeah,
because there was so many. There were more titles than I think artists at one point. So I could see there being so many people, and DC was kind of the same. There was a ton of people there. So unfortunately, I never got to meet him.
No one seems to know what years he worked at DC. They know when he won those awards.
I was nominated for a Squiddy Award, I believe, at some point for coloring.
Ah,
I think it was War of the Independence. I was nominated. I did not win, but I
for a
was nominated. I
this
think in '80, and I think I was nominated in '97, maybe. I forget. It
okay.
used to be on one of my old bios, but that might be on my MySpace page.
Yeah. I remember I voted for the Squeedies in '99,
This
probably.
might be the first time I'm hearing of the Squiddies.
Oh, but the Squeedies were really big on the comics, on the comic book internet in the
Okay.
late '90s,
Yeah.
I
because they
don't
were
think I was on the comic book internet in
the
the late 90s.
the first organized fandom was the Grand Comics database, because it
Ah,
predates the internet. Those Some of those guys who were the founders,
right.
they they used to exchange uh, cards with information,
Okay.
with all of the comics data, on the mail, in the mail. And when they somebody heard about bulletin boards, and they all decided to check it out, see if they could meet
Ah,
more often that way. Then but then this was more during the for during school time, because this was on Usenet, the
right.
news groups. So
Yep.
people didn't use the news groups during summertime because they weren't at school. People didn't have
Mhm.
internet at home
Right.
in the mid '90s. But it's around that time, 94, 95, 90. That's somebody, no, may have been even before that, around 92, 93. Somebody mentioned did a typo. Instead of saying Suicide Squad, they said Suicide Squid.
Ah, that's where
And
Squiddy comes from?
yeah, and people all responded like he was serious about Suicide Squid, so they created a whole mythology around it in a series of posts.
Ah,
Unfortunately, they haven't been they were archived, but then Google deleted everything, because Google got all the servers where the Usenet had been housed, but then they
okay.
erased everything because they needed it. They needed them.
Huh.
Uh, and
Kit Goblin says hello?
and and
Hello.
that's and that's when they created the award. They created the
This,
awards, since Suicide Squid was sort of a meme that
right.
everyone in the news groups knew. they started doing. So the rec.arts.comics dot everything else, which were the official news groups for comics. This would be cross-posted among all of the groups: Marvel, DC, Vertigo, Independence, X-Men. The X-Men had their own group because this was the 90s.
Right.
Then they created one for the Legion because the Legion guys, the other DC fans thought that the Legion guys were so annoying, always talking about the Legion and the Legion minutia. But the
They need to
Squeedies
wall
were
them off in their own group.
yeah. But the Squeedies were cross-posted among all of the groups so that everybody could vote on them.
What was the last year there was a Squiddies, I wonder?
I don't know. Then when I got my first job, I didn't have as much time to do internet stuff. Then I kind of fell out of the news groups even before the people started leaving, because as high-speed internet became more common, a lot of people shifted from the news groups to forums, and the forums allowed images as well, which kind of killed the alt images boards. And I don't know. I suppose it would have been around 2002 or 3.
Okay.
Because by 2003 you had you had Mark Miller's board, you had Bendis' board, you had John Burns' board. So there were a lot of boards with their specific fandoms.
Everyone scattered to the winds.
Yeah, and nobody took over because Comic Book Resources, when they still talked about comic books,
Good evening,
they kind of spent more time talking about the Eisners and the RVs.
Okay.
So they didn't waste time on fan stuff. But yeah, at the moment, by having people scattered all over the internet, it became weird to have a fan award that was considered the fan award.
Right. Did you make it to the comic shop this week, Wilson?
I did. I made it there on Wednesday.
Ooh.
I was up early for something or another, and then I was like, I have time. Let me just go to the comic book shop, because I found myself with some extra time early in the morning, and I was like, well, new comic book day. Why not go to the comic book shop and pick up some books? And it was wonderful in the sense of being able to go to Manhattan, pick up my books, shop around a little bit, and come home and catch an empty subway train, or just about empty, and still be home before noon.
Wow.
And it was one of those things. It's like when you get stuff done early, you still got the rest of the day for yourself. So I was really happy with that. So unfortunately, I didn't read any of the books, but I did pick
ended up
up
with 10 books this week. It was a big week for me.
I saw your list. I saw when you posted it up, and I was upset that I missed a Christian Russo cover.
Yeah.
I wasn't even aware that was out. And so it's like, all right, I have something else to go to the shop for.
We'll start you off. I'll show you the Christian Russo cover.
All right.
Here we go. It's Eddie Brock Carnage.
And it actually looks scary. He did a good job there.
I gotta say this. I ended up with like 4 horror books this week. And this is a straight up horror comic. And it was pretty well done, I have to say. It's by Charles Soule is the writer. Jesus Saiz, S-A-I-Z, is the artist. Matt Hollingsworth on color. And VC's Joe Sabino is the letterer. But this is a straight up horror book. And I gotta say, I liked it. It was pretty well done. It's the story Eddie Brock, who used to be Venom, now has the Carnage symbiote in him. So this whole story takes place on a plane, and we figure and Eddie Brock has to kill some. Carnage is making Eddie Brock kill someone. So Eddie Brock's trying to find someone bad to kill. So someone on the plane is a serial killer, he finds out. So he's trying to figure out who it is and kill that guy. And Carnage is just in his head, taunting him. But then something really horrible and bad happens to the plane. And we don't even get to find out because like Eddie Brock is trying to use his Carnage powers to save all the passengers. But then he blacks out because Carnage took over. Then when he comes back, he doesn't even know what happened to the passengers. So he's like completely freaked out because he's like, did I save them? Are they alive? Are they dead? And so it really, really was a horror book. There's some of the art. But I got to say, it was a pretty well done horror. And I think Charles Soule has written horror books before. Didn't he used to do that indie one? Oh, I can't remember the name of it. I only had a couple issues of it, but it was about some island or something. But yeah, I got to say, this is, and you know, in the tradition, I guess, of the Immortal Hulk, this is a straight up horror book. And they did a pretty good job at making me feel horrified. You felt Eddie Brock's pain as he was like, I don't even know what happened to all those people. Did I save them? Did I not? Are they all dead? So it was a good issue, I have to say.
That's very cool to know. So I'll definitely pick that up.
Yeah, definitely
know,
track
'cause
down that
again-
Chris Russo cover and pick it up.
And
I
the fact
think
that you're calling it horror, where we usually, we've talked about it before, where we really haven't read horror books. They were like, some are scary-ish,
Yeah.
but not really, and most of them usually end up being more thrillers than horrors.
Right.
that's
This one
cool.
genuinely gave me a creepy feeling.
Nice.
And there was actually, when I get to them, I was amazed at how many horror books all of a sudden I had on my list. Like if you count Grimm, it would be 5 out of 10, but I think it was really 4 out of 10. Because I don't know if Grimm, though it's about Grim Reapers, I don't really know if it was. There were some horror things, but I wouldn't really call it a horror book. But this was straight up horror.
Okay.
And I have to say, I prefer my horror without a twist ending.
Right.
I like my horror to be pre-code where bad things just happened. There's no twist ending to justify everything. It's just bad things happen. But yeah, I was surprised that I enjoyed it, and I was surprised that it was horror, really, because I don't think I've ever read a Carnage comic. I read the Venom ones, that miniseries that Chris did the covers for, and I think this is also Chris's own cover, because if you remember those the Venom War covers that he just did, he was doing a take on the A cover. This one just says Chris Russo. I don't think it says after anyone, but it's hard to see the. Hold on, I'm gonna pull out my magnifier.
All right. While you're looking for that, I don't recall seeing that image on any Carnage covers before. And
Yeah.
since that is an Eddie Brock Carnage, I don't even think that was a pose that Eddie had as Venom. So that might be.
Oh no, this is after Coelho.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, so it says that really tiny. You can barely see it. So I guess he's doing one. He was the artist. He's not the artist on this, but he was the artist on the Venom War.
Oh, okay.
So I guess he's doing a cover for this too, which Chris then did his version of.
All right. So I have no horror books in my pile. Also, I haven't read any of them, so I don't know. But the first book I'll show, and I bought it because of the cover, is One World Under Doom.
That one was the hot book of the week, I think.
I guess it had, I think, at least I saw 4 covers at least, and I was really torn between this cover and the cover that shows It's a more of a close up of Doctor Doom, and it's the whole cover is green, so he's more like outlined. There's a
Uh-huh.
set of covers like that. I forget the name of the artist. I don't know if this actually will have printed the other
My
covers.
LCS was reordering it that day because they sold out.
Oh yeah, Midtown had a ton of them. That was that was set up. So they had different covers, and no, this book does not reprint any of the other covers in it, but it has, as I mentioned, the reason why I picked this one out, it was because it's a Mignola cover,
I was gonna say that
and I
looks
do
like
like.
Mignola, but I didn't think it was him. I thought it was someone doing a Mignola thing. That's
No,
funny.
this is Mignola's Marvel style, and
Ah,
um, Mignola has that. You could tell it's Mignola, and it works for some characters. It doesn't
yeah,
work for other characters. I always thought it worked well with Doom because he
right.
did that Doom and Doctor Strange. Um, Graphic album a few years, 20 or 30 years ago back now, and I always enjoyed his artwork on those particular superheroes. The magical stuff he seems to do quite well, so that's why I was like, I picked this cover. Although graphically, the other cover, which is basically anything that was green on Doom,
Uh-huh.
merged in with the background because it was just an all green cover, and
Right.
he's just outlined, and not even outlined. Whatever's not green is outlined in that particular
Yeah.
cover. So
Now
visually,
that
it's a really cool cover.
is
But
that supposed to be along the lines of Emperor Doom?
I don't know if this is connected to that. Doom
Okay.
is
I,
this
I
is the
think it's
new.
not connected, but I think it's similar in that it's like a world where he's taken over or something.
I think so. I think it's one of those things where he is either leading up to Emperor Doom, because the whole one world under Doom is very similar to the Doom 2099 event that was One Nation under
Uh,
Doom. So I
right.
think it's the anniversary of that story. So you had Emperor Doom, which was a graphic novel. That
Mm-hmm.
was a one shot in itself. And Doom took over, and he was like living in the White House, and um, the story went from there. So that was Emperor Doom. One Nation under Doom was the 2099 crossover event, and I don't know if that ended the 2099 universe, or
Yeah, I don't
if I
know.
remember correctly, I think 2099 fizzled out.
My
Uh,
knowledge of the 2099 universe is very limited.
yeah, I
Okay,
picked up
time
all
for
the
me to
first
jump in then.
issues. Ah, there you go. Here we go. Yep.
Okay, so first Emperor Doom. You've heard the criticism that a lot of the Marvel graphic novels from that period could have been an annual instead.
Right.
Emperor Doom is one of those cases.
Yeah.
It's not very memorable.
Right.
It's not a bad story, but it's not memorable. It's not going to be something
I
that, oh, I
I
have to
can't
read
even
this.
remember if I still have it on my shelf. I think I
Yeah.
might, but I'm not sure.
Uh, One
I'm
Nation Under
almost
Doom
sure I
was
still have it on my shelf.
One Nation Under Doom is probably the best storyline to come out of 2099.
Okay.
It definitely put Warren Ellis on the map in the way that Excalibur didn't, because Excalibur was he
Right.
did started doing Excalibur slightly before
Do,
Doom.
do you know do you know what put Warren Ellis on the map for me?
Mm-hmm.
Hellfire, of all things.
Hellstorm.
He did a Hellstorm, pardon me, Hellstorm. He did like a Hellstorm miniseries at some time, and I think Marie Javins was editing it, and I just happened to be in her office, and I picked up an issue and read it, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty good stuff."
Because that thing lasted well over a year, but it went. A lot of things happened in all of the books, and it
Mhm.
was quite a ride because it seems to have ended quickly, but it didn't. I think lasted for over a
Uh,
year. Even the TPB collection with the storyline that's basically just the Doom 2099 book that has over 1 year of stories in there.
wow.
It's a very thick book.
How many
Uh,
how long did the 29 universe last? How many
uh,
issues was Spider-Man 2099?
47, I think.
Okay. That's a good
Well,
solid
it
run.
it it fizzled. It didn't fizzle out. the lamp burned out. There was an exodus when during the Marvolution, the Marvel
Right.
Cushion, they fired Joe Cavalieri,
Right.
Right, and he was
and
heading that
everybody,
thing.
yeah, and everybody quit in protest. So the last batch of issues, especially in X-Men, X Nation was X Nation, the new Fantastic Four, which only lasted 6 issues. No, 8 issues. It was X Nation was 6. The last issues of Doom are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And they even tried to do a crossover that spilled over into the regular Fantastic Four book, because yeah, and then they canceled everything, and they launched an anthology to try to wrap up all of the storylines, which less than a year, and then boom, it was gone. But
How-
it was a Joey Cavalieri firing
Right.
that killed the 2099 universe.
And how many issues was Doom 2099?
That lasted for 44 issues, I think.
Wow.
Because
Once
Doom,
again, they had a
yeah,
good run.
yeah, because Doom was the second book.
Right.
It launched with Spider-Man, then it was Doom, and then it was Punisher, and the X-Men was the fourth book. So Doom lasted for quite a while, and the first round written by John Francis Moore with art by Pat Broderick is pretty interesting. It's not what you expect from Doom, because you can it's the mystery of, is this Doom, is this not Doom, because he remembers stuff. He acts like he remembers stuff. And if you're a Marvel fan, a long-time Marvel fan, you'll recognize that the way he talks, what he's talking about did happen, and it looks like it was personal to him. But there were also some memory gaps, which they ended up explaining when Moore wrapped up his run. And then Alice takes over, and okay, let's have let's have Doom take over the United States, because that'll be fun.
You forgot Ravage 2099. Well,
no, I didn't.
We did not. We spoke of him before.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember his name, and I was going to call him Trasher 2099.
Created by Stan
I
Lee.
couldn't remember the name.
Ravage 29 has been erased from everyone's memories.
Except Tit Goblin. I bought Ravage 2099 books this week, 8 to 12. He turns into a gargoyle, man.
Yeah, they had absolutely no idea what to do with that.
Let me show you one of the one-shots I got this week. That was pretty good. I guess AWA is going to be doing a series of them. This is Cam Girl by Sarah H. Cho and C.P. Smith. And in the back, we get a little bit of an editorial by Sarah H. Cho explaining why she wrote this and how it was based on some psychotic break she had years ago, but that was part of it. But let me show you some of the artwork. I'm not sure who C.P. Smith is, but I enjoyed his artwork. Or her artwork. Don't know if it's a he, she, or they. But here's the question I have. Has there ever been a story, TV show, movie, comic book about a cam girl that didn't involve a stalker?
Yeah.
Because that's always and sure enough, there's a stalker in this, and that's what makes it a thriller. Meet Danny. She's independent, loves to party, and she makes a whole lot of money. Now meet Kyoko, Danny's online alter ego. She's obedient, she's exotic, she's a walking stereotype that caters to her customers' basest fantasies. When one of Kyoto's most ardent followers starts to send her increasingly threatening messages, Danny's two lives become dangerously intertwined. But it's like, I enjoyed it. It was about 40 pages. I didn't count. No, let's see. It's probably 48 minus maybe 44 pages. And there's an afterword by Axel Alonso that said nothing. I was just amazed at how he filled up this whole page with nothing, especially since it's an afterword, which means we read it after we've read the story. And it's like he's trying to tell us this. He's giving us the old bad book report plot of what happened in the story. Pursued by a relentless stalker who wants nothing short of her total decimation, Danny realizes there's only one way out. It's like, yeah, we know that. We just read it. It was a very strange after. I mean, the Sarah H. Cho's afterword was nice. It was an afterword. It was after you read the story, you find out more about her, making the story of what it means to her and this and that. His afterword was advertising for the story that we already read. So it was very, very strange. I don't know, that just struck me as weird after reading this whole. But it looks like AWA is going to be doing a couple more. Like here's another Polis. Here's another one shot.
Is that wider than a regular comic?
No, regular comic size.
Okay, because I guess it's the cover design makes it look wider.
Yeah, could be. It's got that thing
Yeah, 'cause
bar
it's no
going across.
corner box
But
art.
I gotta say, I'm probably gonna buy this next one shot too, because I find I really like one shots. Just give you a little, 40-page. They're kind of like annuals used to be, only not with characters, just with all new stuff. But I like the story. It was an enjoyable thrill. But once again, I gotta say to myself, has there ever been a story about a cam girl without a stalker in it? I don't think so. Because I don't. What kind of story could you tell about a cam girl if it doesn't have a stalker in it? No stalker. It could just be a slice of life story.
CP stands for Christopher Paul.
Christopher Paul. Okay.
Timey Wimey Limey says, Cam Girl and Stalker, coming soon in a 3-issue limited series. Actually, that's kind of a good idea, but we can make it sort of like Mr. Wilson and Dennis.
A comedy.
Yeah.
But I gotta say,
and the Dennis character would really be named Stalker. That would be his real name.
And I always say, if something appeals to me, it's got like very little chance of success.
Yes, stop liking books.
So I'm liking these one shots, so they have to be selling none of them. I'm going to buy the next one. Who's the Polis? Polis. Welcome to Better Futures, by award-winning writer Mark Russell, with arts by Laci, Laci. That's one name. The Protopius collection, AWA Future Fic. So I guess it's a science fiction one shot. So like I said, I'm probably the only one buying these one shots, and they'll fade away. So that's what happened with what was it? Aftershock. Aftershock started putting out those one shot graphic novels, and I was buying them. I was like, oh, these are pretty cool. They went bankrupt like 8 months later or something. Friar Tuck says, I'm a completist, so only missing FF 2099 run and an issue or two of Spider-Man 2099 and X-Men 2099. He's got to get all his 2099s.
Yeah, there's something neat to be able to say that you have a whole run of a dead series, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like I was I was playing around with that, collecting continuity books.
Okay.
Because it's like you could get their output. There's not as many as like a Marvel comics.
They're cheap.
And they're not that expensive. So I've been I haven't done it in a while. A couple of years ago, I've been going on to like eBay and stuff like that and just buying practically someone's collection, because they would have a good chunk of those books. So I would get like a whole box full of books for a couple of bucks. I think it cost me more to ship it than it did the actual worth of the book. So I could see why trying to collect a 2099 run, because of the novelty of that series is done. and I think there's one or
Yeah.
two not graphic novels, but 32-page books, as he said, to wrap up the series. I think they tried that a few times.
I was just laughing in my head because there's a couple of times I was giving away some comics to students, and the way I was giving away is I was pulling off like mini series off my shelf that I was just never going to read anymore. You know, I was like 4, 6, whatever they were, indie stuff. So I was giving them my students. They're like, "Oh, why don't you take 2 issues of this and I'll take an issue." I'm like, "No, you can't break them up. They got the complete series there. No, you'll just be reading 1 or 2 issues. No, don't break them up."
You
Gotta
take
keep
this
them
series,
together.
you take this series. When you're done
Yeah,
reading them, then you trade them with each
swap
other.
them.
It's the way
That's
to
what the
do it.
That's what the 2 students on Monday who I gave them. They're like, "Okay," because I gave one of them The Massive and one of them Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer. And they're both like, "All right, when I finish, we'll swap when we finish reading." I'm like, "Yes, that's the way you do it."
So another book that I got, not from the books that I bought.
Yeah.
This was actually a gift given to me by a friend of mine. I went to his place and he was like, "Oh, I got something for you." And it's like, "Oh, what did you get?" So he picked up from somewhere. They got it from his cousin. And I was like, "Hey, do you want this?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll take it. I know who to give it to." And it's funny because Pablo mentioned it's Dennis the Menace and Mr. Wilson.
Look at that.
It was issue number 16. So he got it for me because it says Mr. Wilson on the cover. And it's like, oh, it went, as far as I know, at least 16 issues.
When is that
I don't
from?
know. So this is, um, let's see, it's
I don't
Fawcett.
recognize it at all.
It says Fawcett Comics on it. And let me put my glasses on so I can actually read the indicia. So it credits Fawcett Comics, Dennis the Menace and Friends series, a magazine publication, 4 times a year. And this was Fawcett Publications from Illinois. And I'm looking for a year. 1972.
Oh, wow.
So number 16. This was published in October 1972. So I was
And it's
1 year old.
magazine size. I don't think I've ever seen one of those before. Oh, no, is it comic size
It's
or?
comic size, yeah.
Okay, it's comic size.
Yep. There's a stamp on the back of here, October 27th, 1972. That's
Odds.
pretty neat. There's a stamp on the back.
They stamped it when it came in. I don't think
Yep.
I have ever seen one of those.
I have not seen it either. The art looks like, well, it looks to model to the comic book, the comic strip, but back then it doesn't look like they're crediting anybody with it. Let's see. I don't see an editorial page.
Infinity says the trade paperback, the best way of keeping comic book run together.
Yes.
Not always the best way to read it. They don't always open.
Not a single house ad.
Ah.
Or looks like not a single ad in it. It's the full book is
You
completely
got your
story.
money's worth from Mr.
Yeah.
Wilson.
Let's see. So the ads on the back is a Magic World of Surprise. So you have one of these classic comic book order things.
Hold on, let me get that close. There we go. Magic World of Surprises and Mystery. One of them looks like a gun up top there. Saying,
That's the
bang.
back. Here's the back cover ad.
Disney Kin Play characters are here.
And then the front cover ad. But there is nothing about the company itself.
Huh.
So there's no editorial pages, no credit pages.
What was that we ran into recently with a Fawcett logo on it? Was that that issue of Pep I got? The
That
Archie
might have
Comics
been.
one?
I think so. Because we were
Huh.
surprised that Fawcett was even on the cover.
Yeah, I remember us going Fawcett. Maybe they were distributing still in the early 70s. Or somebody named Fawcett was.
Maybe. Did the logo look like that? Where it's like not an arrow underneath it, but
Let's
it's
see, hold on.
basically, it looks like a button almost.
Looks like a faucet in a sink.
Yeah.
Let me check. Hold on. I think I just put that issue back in my Gatsby.
And then on the bottom of this, it says reprint by popular demand.
This is just faucet in a box, so it doesn't have that fancy sink under it.
Right. It's very similar, though.
Yeah. Just the word. Maybe they were distributing to the newsstand.
Holden Division of Fawcett Publication.
Okay, that's better. All right, so Holden Fawcett. So they went on publishing comics until 1979. That's issue what?
This is issue number 16.
All right, but they took over from Pines with 32. So.
And what it looks like, the actual title of the book is Dennis the Menace and His Friends series. Dennis the Menace and Mr. Wilson. So you have all that on the top. But the actual comic book title from the indicia, Hamilton House Department. Oh no, wait, is that? That might be the ad. So Dennis the Menace and His Friends series.
Okay, found it. So
4
Dennis
times
the
a year.
Yeah, okay. 1970 to 1980, they took over with issue number 5. Or that? No, they didn't take over from anything. They apparently counted 4 issues of something else as the first 4 issues, and they started with number 5. So it went up to 46. Digest size from 38 to 46.
Oh, okay.
So okay, number 16. This is October 72.
Yes.
Yeah, and these are reprints from the 60s.
Yeah, which makes sense because on the bottom here it says reprinted by popular demand.
Sure.
Yeah.
We believe that.
Hey, ever since I realized World's Greatest Comic Magazine, decided by who? How can your first issue be the World's Greatest Comic Magazine?
You're so confident.
Once I realized that you could tell, I wouldn't say that's a lie, but you could tell that kind of story.
You could name it anything you want.
You could name it anything you want. All new and improved formula. It's like, oh. So I posted today on my Team Kaiju Facebook page, World's Greatest Kaiju Fighter Magazine. Figured, all right, who's going to dispute me?
You have to have a fight with another Kaiju magazine.
That's right.
Brian Tuck says, I'm trying to complete 2099 Universe out of the dollar boxes for at least 15 years now. Maybe time to call it a day and just buy the last few for whatever price. Yeah, that happens to people collecting stuff out of a dollar box. There's that 1 or 2 issues that for some reason aren't in dollar boxes. You know, sometimes it's because of the first appearance of Lobo, but most of the time it's just because people can't be bothered to put everything in the dollar box. So you gotta pay $5, $6, $10 shipped for those last couple issues of dollar bucks.
You know, the way I look at that is like I feel like, well, you know what? I've saved so much money getting the rest of the series out of the dollar bin. It's like, well, if I have to pay $5 for this particular issue to finish the run,
why not?
You know, why not? That's a whole lot of fun.
Infinity says, when you buy your Howard Chaykin's American Flag collection, make sure it's the ones with issues 1 through 12. That's some solid advice right there. May as well get the best issues of the series.
Yeah. The next issue I took off the shelf is a facsimile.
Oh, yes.
Of Fantastic Four.
Hey, look at that.
Issue number 2.
I also got off the shelf. I managed to pre-order number 3, but I didn't get number 2 pre-ordered. And I was just reading this before the show, and I got to say, it was fun to read as an actual comic. Because, of course, I've read Fantastic Four number 2, not in a long, long time. But it was fun to see and read as an actual comic rather than in a book.
Yes, there's just something. What I also like about it is they're keeping the same coloring from that
Yeah,
time period. And
right.
I enjoy that so much because I do like things like the knockout of some characters, for the drama and the effect. You have the scrolls here being attacked by Johnny Storm, and they're all orange, and
Yeah,
they're knocked out that kind of color on there. That's a lot of fun. You have a limited palette as it is, and they're taking, well, I guess risks is the best word for it, to get these done. The FF aren't important in this particular panel, so they're all in yellow.
yep.
They're all in these weird colors. And this is, again, back when the Thing couldn't really control
Nope.
its change, so it would just show up, turn off. And again, this is back when he was still Oatmeal Thing, where he wasn't really finalized.
And
And
you
don't
can really
forget,
see that with the new sharper printing. He actually looks, I think, lumpier than he did on the newsprint, which
yes,
obscured some of his lumpiness. So I found that real interesting too. Like
But that
just this picture of the Thing raising his arms right there. Let me get it bigger so everyone can see it.
that still reads a lot like a monster story.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Just like that picture
very
of the
much so.
Thing right there is completely gone in the original. It's like it's so small that he doesn't look like a monster. He looks like some blobs of color in gray. So I thought it was interesting. I got a better look at the Fantastic Four #2 Thing than I ever have. I thought that was interesting. Oh, and also, pin up two of the. Once again, I know people love their newsprint originals, but I also like these sharp new printings.
I do as well. I do, just mainly because of seeing how bold the colors were, how much they
Yeah,
pop out. Even something as simple as this, just the two colors or the three colors
right.
of red, orange, and yellow in the background. I enjoy that so much.
And the colors were supposed to be as bright as possible. People always talk how the colors were more muted. I'm like, yeah, but they were still trying to make them as bright as possible. And a lot of the muting comes from the yellowing of the paper. It doesn't come from what they were trying to do. They were using the
Exactly.
brightest yellow they
That
could.
they could, yeah.
They
Here's
weren't,
another one that's a great panel
yeah.
of just them together and him being that yellowish green
Oh, and what did I
or
just
yellow.
see? Someone on here told us that they were doing all 12 of these issues. Now I know why. Because I think it was last week I saw in final order cutoff was, have you been buying that facsimile editions of Black Suit Spider-Man?
Yes.
They're putting out a Black Suit Spider-Man archive edition omnibus.
Ah, okay.
So they're taking all the, which I assume they're going to do with Fantastic Four once it gets to 12 too. They're
Right.
putting all of the facsimile ads and everything together in an omnibus. I think they called it an archive edition.
Oh, okay.
So
I could see that. I could see the
yeah,
fact that, we had the announcement of the Fantastic Four movie was
right.
last week. They had the trailer for it. So it's all synergy.
Yeah, I guess that's for people who want the original ads in the comics, but don't want to buy the facsimile editions. They want to buy it all in like Paulo and Timey Wimey, who said the trade paperback, best way of keeping the comic book run together. That's
Mhm.
what they're looking for.
Yep.
Yep, a copy of Fantastic Four #1 is worth $50 and comes packaged with issues 2 to 18,
Uh-huh.
which is the Epic Collection.
Right.
So for those of you who think that issue #1 costs thousands of dollars, it doesn't. It costs $50.
But yeah, really, it was really fun to read this and look at it as a comic. That's why I like these facsimile editions. They turn these valuable collectors items back into comic books. That's why I appreciate them. That's why I appreciate them.
I think I first read issue number 2 when they were printing those smaller magazines,
Yep.
the
Uh,
digest magazines.
The
I think that's
pocket
how
books.
yes.
I
I
read.
think
That's
that's
where I
how
first read it too.
I think that's how I first read the
I
Fantastic.
think that's the only way I read. I never got because I was just thinking. I'm like, I don't think I've read Fantastic Four #2 maybe since that pocket book, which I read a ton as a kid.
Right, and I
I
probably didn't read it again until a Masterworks.
I don't know. I don't have many Masterworks. I don't have that Fantastic Four one, so I don't think I may not have even read it in the Masterworks. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the only place I could remember reading it.
Tit Goblin says the oldest radio station in North America is in a basement church up the street. To promote it as Jesus Radio Station, world's greatest comic magazine. Market ploy. Yep. It's all about selling us comics, and I'm okay with people saying I want comics to buy.
Yeah. I like comics being fun again in this kind of way. I think it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Be able to pick it up and again, even if it is a facsimile edition, it's the actual comic book.
If it was a Fantastic Four #2, you wouldn't be flipping through it like that.
You got that right. That is definitely correct.
That's what makes them fun. Comic Crack says, or you can grab a copy of Collector's Item Classic #1 to get an FF #1 that is good old stinky yellow newsprint for a fraction of the price.
That's right.
Good old stinky newsprint.
Very interesting information too under the indicia, all about the authorized representation in the EU for product safety and compliance to Disney trading. All this corporate stuff on there.
Here's a Timey Wimey brings up, I have a few of those Cerebus phone books, but for generosity of original bonus material, Swords of Cerebus are great collections. I was just reading, speaking of Cerebus, there's a guy who wrote 60,000 words about Cerebus, I think it was. Let me see if I can. I bookmarked it, and I just read his epilogue. Where'd it go? It's under comics, Cerebus blog. It's freakytrigger.co. Let me see if I can post this. Just because it was interesting. But he had some interesting thing. There's the blog. That's the last part of it, the conclusion. So I just read but he had some interesting thoughts about Cerebus and if it was good or not. But one of the things he said that I thought was interesting was he's like, in the future, probably Cerebus will only be read by like historians and archivists. Because what was that?
Probably, yeah. But regardless of whatever polemic Dave Sim brought on himself, that's true of most collected editions for things that are over 30 years old.
Yeah. And he was saying that, he was, in the conclusion, you'll hear him say he breaks Cerebus down into like 3 distinct graphic novels, kind of the beginning, the middle, and the end. And he was saying, when Dave Sim became, the religious nut, that will probably put off, and the fact that'll probably put off younger people. He's like, Cerebus will only be read by old fans and archivists. But he had some interesting points about it too. Like when we were talking about reading comics, he was like, it'll be read by historians because Cerebus, he chose to make it in 20-page comics. And Cerebus was often reacting to what was going on in the comics industry, especially the first third of it. So Cerebus can actually give you like a picture into what was going on in the comics industry during those years as it was being released in 20-page installment, making fun of Wolverine, stuff like that. So it will be looked at as by historians for that reason. But, and he said, we had one line that was funny where he said, and Dave Sim maybe could have become a hero of the right, but none of them are going to read a 6,000-page graphic novel about an aardvark. Like,
but like I said, regardless of whatever Dave Sim brought on himself, that's going to be true of most stuff. That's also going to be true of ElfQuest.
But they didn't really bring anything on
much
themselves.
more. Yeah, but ElfQuest is much more readable.
Right.
But people are only going to pick up ElfQuest if they're pseudo historians like me.
Somebody mentioned the anti-Dave Sim would be Stan Sakai.
Sure.
Because he's a nice guy everybody loves, and you can pick up any portion of Usagi and read it generally.
Right. In that regard, Usagi Yojimbo is more like Tintin and Asterix. Tintin and Asterix survive because even if there's no new graphic novel this year, you can go into any supermarket, pick up any book, and read it. And if you don't want to, you don't have to pick up any book ever again. And you can pick up another one, and it's like, and you can read all of them out of order, and and everything will make sense. And Usagi Yojimbo works like that.
Yeah.
My comparison of ElfQuest to Cerebus is that ElfQuest functions the same way as Cerebus. You have to read each I wouldn't say volume, but each arc or series. You can only read that series as a whole. The original series must be read as a whole. You can't pick up an issue here and there. And if they break it up into 1, 2, 3, 4, you have to read it in the order 1, 2, 3, 4 for the story to make sense. And any spin-off that happens 5,000 years after the original series, while you don't need to read the original series, each spin-off, that graphic novel must be read as a whole. And any graphic novel collection must be read as a whole. You can't just read an ElfQuest story and it's whatever.
Right. And another reason he said that, which I agree with, that Cerebus is probably not going to be read even by, let's see, Affinity here says, whereas Dave Sim's production diaries were life-changing to teenage me back in the early 80s. Yeah, the first Cerebus phone beat, i.e. Swords of Cerebus ones, i.e. the Barbarian parody is its own thing, is that us fans of Cerebus, who read a lot of Cerebus, don't think it ended well. So when even the fans of Cerebus are saying, oh my God, the ending was unreadable.
Sure.
That means who's gonna read a 6,000-page graphic novel when even the fans of it say the end is unreadable?
Yeah, but that's to be expected. The guy who wrote page 6,000 of that graphic novel is not the same guy as the one who did the first page.
And he also said he never looked back.
Right.
So it was all about going forward, but it's just strange that
even if Sim hadn't gotten crazy,
right?
It's somebody who's 40 years older,
right?
It's not the same person, so something will be different.
I'm not saying it'll be the same. It's just unread. It's like it's one of he wrote a 6,000-page graphic novel over 30 years that amounted to nothing. It's going to amount to nothing. That's what's so strange. Even us fans of Cerebus are like, do you really want to read Cerebus? It says Dave Sim has the Chomo problem. Right are going to nope on that. Okay. I would say Eric Larson's Savage Dragon is anti-Dave Sim. Yeah, that could be it too. Dragon is as political and topical as Cerebus, but leftist. And that's just
Yes and no.
yeah,
Here's the thing. Well, there are definitely cycles of stories in Savage
right.
Dragon. You can pick up any issue and see what they're blowing up that
Right.
month.
And his, the leftist nature of Eric Larson isn't sort of the main idea of the book. It just shows up because, Savage Dragon has to leave America because they're driving immigrants out, and he's one of those. So like that happened a few years ago under the first Trump. So there's stuff like that in there, but it's not like Dave Sim having Cerebus do his own interpretation of the Bible. I mean, that's Larson's leftism shows itself in some of Savage Dragon's adventures, but it's not the adventure. And Cerebus, at the end, that was the point of it, was Cerebus being old and dying and writing his own Bible or trying to interpret the Bible. It's hard to explain if you haven't actually read it. Infinity said, I've been working in the book set since 2012, since 2012. It's essential to get some time distance. Yeah, I like I said, I read Cerebus. Cerebus was always one of those books I meant to read in the 80s. And I, some reason, never did. But in the 90s, I said, I'm going to start to read Cerebus. So first I got Cerebus bi-weekly, which was the early issues. And then I got on the Cerebus phone books, started buying them. And then I forget what, somewhere within maybe the last 5 years, I bought Cerebus month to month. I was like, you know what? I want to be in for the end of it. So I read it month to month for the last 5 years or so. And near the end, the letters page was more interesting than the actual comic, because the comic was just like, what's going on here? It was Cerebus interpreting scripture. And it was like, what? For issue after issue after issue. It was a little crazy. Like I said, I think I've got I'm missing 15, but my LCS gave me a damaged copy of 16 of Cerebus phone book, just because he's like, here, I can never sell this. Let's see. Saying the difference is the world is telling politics, not the creator's rots. I guess that's the Savage Dragon. Can you explain the overall plot of Usagi? Does it continue chronologically? I only pick up the. There is no overall plot to Usagi. It's just he's a masterless samurai, and each book has its own adventure. There's recurring characters and recurring things that happen, but you don't have to know about any of it for his current, his relationship with his cousin has been built up over the last 5 years or so. But you can pick up any, and he's his cousin, and he's on the adventure with him. He's had girlfriends come. I think he had one true love who's come and gone, but she's got her own honor stuff. So there's no overall plot besides adventures that take place during the samurai era of feudal Japan.
I would connect that close to like Conan, where you could
Yeah,
just pick
kind of
up
like Conan, right? There's
and you just know that it's a barbarian who has adventures,
yeah.
and these are the various tales that have may or may not been literally ripped out of the novels.
Besides
and
being Conan
comics.
being a king in his old age, there's no
There's no
overall
real
plot to Conan.
You could just jump on it at any point in time.
Mm-hmm. So that's what I'd say. You'd have a hard time jumping on Cerebus at any point in time, unless you get one of the phone book
books.
editions. I'm only missing phone book edition number 1 and number 15. But I have all the issues. And I want to get them just to fill them in. I don't even want to necessarily read them. I remember I read Jacques' story a few years ago, and I had a fun time reading that one. I reread it just for the heck of it. But I kind of want to reread those last issues that I and everybody says were so terrible, to see what they read like 15 years later. But I have complete faith they're going to be just as terrible. So, was there a rhino that had his schnoz sliced off at the tip? Yes.
Yes.
I think that was the closest Usagi got to continuity. Yeah, that was, and I'm convinced that's because it's easier to draw the rhino without the big long horn, and it's chopped off as a circle. I'm convinced that's what happened, because that happened kind of early on to that character, whose name I forget. Is the future Usagi the same character as old-timey Japan Yojimbo? Pretty much. I mean, it's like Usagi, he's supposed to be his, I don't know, great-great-great-grandson or something, but they're pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's a descendant kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I've read a few, and I think that's what the animated story was like that they
Yeah.
had a while back. I think it was like you're not too sure where in the timeline it exists, but it might have been a descendant.
Didn't that one get canceled?
Unfortunately,
it
so I
didn't
think
get.
it only had one season or something like that.
I thought it didn't even get produced, or am I thinking of something else like that? Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much the same. There's just laser beams and spaceships in Space Usagi. Otherwise, it's a kind of a regular Usagi. There's princesses and evil empires and sword fights and blaster fights.
Yeah.
I think there was only like there isn't a lot of Space Usagi either. There's like 12 issues or so. Is Deckard a human? Pretty much. What is this pretty much? I know English, and it pretty much means nothing. That's from a TV show from a French woman. And the guy said, yeah, it's a pretty lot. What is this pretty lot? That's not English. Nobody says pretty lot. That always stuck with me for some reason. Let's see, what else did I get this week? We'll give you another horror book. A first issue. Mine is A Long, Lonesome Grave. From Oni Press. Not edited by Carl Bohlers. Written by Justin Jordan. Illustrated by Chris Sheehan. Colored by Alessandro Santora. Lettered by Mika Myers. And I'd call this one a horror book because it opens with a guy getting a railroad spike hammered into his eye, because when you take a railroad spike from a crossroads and drive it into somebody's eye, it traps their soul in their dead body. So there's some horror magic going in here too. And then we switch to this guy getting out of jail for the first time in 20 years, I think. West Virginia. And though it's not explicitly stated, I think he drove a nail into this was the guy who was in jail right there. He drove a nail into that guy because that guy killed his wife and child, or his wife. I'm not sure which. It's tough to say. His child might still be alive, and since he's getting out of jail, he's going back to his own hometown to get a bag full of money he buried in the backyard. And I think it may be his child who he's talking to. Only his wife may have been killed, but his daughter's not talking to him because he did some bad things, like drive railroad spikes into some guy's eye. So then he needs his blood to open up the box, which has the money in it. So it starts turning into a real, like there's some sort of horror magic happening here. He beats up some guys, and at the end he finds out he had somebody. This town he comes from is bad. They got some bad magic in that town. And since he was just coming back into town, but somebody and leaving, but somebody bad in that town who doesn't like him put a curse on him. And now he has to break the curse or he's dead in 7 days. So he starts because in order to break the curse, he has to find out who put the curse on him and kill that person. So he starts by finding one of the lackeys and driving railroad spikes into his eyes.
He goes right back to that old chestnut.
Yeah. So it was, and like I said, horror, and it was good. I'm gonna get more of this one. I'm gonna put it on my poll. I assume it's a mini series because it's from Oni, and I don't see how this story can be continuing. So, but yeah, I liked this one. Mine is a long, lonesome grave. Giant-sized spectacle of capitalism by combat. Patrick Horvath, free for all. That's the ad on the back. Let's notice his face is sliced up. Whatever the one this is in it, from the Emmy-nominated, creator of Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, coming in March. I'm going to keep my eyes open for free for all. Unless I ordered it already. I don't know. Because I liked Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, so I'll buy the next. But yeah, mine is a long, lonesome grave. It was a good first issue. I'm going to read more. That was my second horror book of the week. Yeah.
Speaking of Oni, I saw right before we got online. I saw a posting that between Oni and Mad Cave, Mad Cave has announced quite a few new hires.
Oh yeah, I saw
A
that.
good amount of people. And it's like, well, that's good news in this day and age of
Yeah.
company actually hiring a bunch of
They
people.
hired
instead
a
of
marketing person, I think. That's what I
Yeah.
saw.
a couple of
Oh,
editorial
okay.
and things
They've
like
been
that,
putting
where
out
it's like,
quite a few comics.
yeah.
Mad
So
Cave.
it's nice to see a company growing compared to
Yeah.
usually seeing massive layoffs here and there.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And they think they posted all the assets that are for sale for Diamond's bankruptcy.
Okay.
So
Wonder if anyone's buying them.
we wanted to buy free comic book day. We can get that.
Oh wow. They own that, huh?
Or they
The
own the
railroad spike in
idea.
the eye certainly is an enduring image, isn't it, folks? Yeah, it worked in that horror context. Affinity, and he did go. Stan is a Hawaiian treasure. He is. 9-inch nail in your eye, says Undead. Yeah, I knew I was in for a ride when he, wasn't just threatening to put a railroad spike in someone's eye. He did it, and like I said, trapped his soul in his body. So that doesn't just kill you; it condemns you to a horrible afterlife.
Fascinating. And isn't it amazing how we can talk about this comic being out when that was like one of the main staple of the comics code
Yeah,
was
yeah. Injury to the eye
the threat
motif.
to the injury to the eye, and this one is just showing it happening.
And that makes me wonder too, because it has to be a railroad spike from a crossroads. If I wanted to put a railroad spike from the crossroads through something, and I knew this trick, where I could do that and trap their soul in their body, I would think I would bring railroad spikes with me to replace the railroad spike I pull out of the crossroad. That way, the crossing is still safe, and I've always got a supply of
Interesting.
railroad
Yeah.
spikes from crossroads. That just struck me right now because, that's where does he get all these railroad spikes from crossroads? I got to assume you got to go to the crossroads and pull them out of the ground, which isn't an easy thing. And somebody finds you've pulled them out of the ground, they're gonna look into that.
Yeah.
And
They're
you're gonna run out of
replacing
you need a go-to railroad crossing somewhere nearby you. So I got to figure you carry some with you. You pull them out, put one right back in. That way, when you need to go back, you got one.
Now, does it actually have to be holding down the railroad?
I would think so.
Because you would have, you have that gravel space. You could put a whole group of spikes in there, cover it up with the gravel,
Maybe.
come back a few days later, pull them up. They're
Maybe that,
technically
maybe, yeah.
railroad.
I don't know how the spell would work, but
Yeah,
that could
I,
be
I
another way
mean,
around it.
but I could see someone being cursed for doing that because it's like now it's a technicality, and if that's the
Darn it!
run,
It didn't work. It just killed him. How would you know?
that's true. Well, how
Tap
do
on his
we even
skull. Say,
already know that
hello.
he's keeping someone's soul in there anyway?
You'd need a
You know,
soul
how
detector of some
how
kind
did
to
you
see if it was.
discover that?
Dee 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 dee. My soul detector says he's not in there. My spell didn't work. All I did was kill him.
And this is why we're not allowed to review horror comic books. It's like, wait, it almost comes down to like Gremlins. After midnight Central Standard Time, or is it?
By the time of the night, no clocks.
Yeah.
Like I said, another horror book. It was a good one. Maybe it's a railroad spike from Parallel Universe B. Who knows?
True. Just never know. Continuing the books that I got that were waiting for me at the shop,
What did you get?
Transformers issue number 17.
And how many of them have you read so far?
So here's Transformers issue number 17 that I picked up. I read maybe the first 4 books and then I stopped. But what I've read, I enjoyed, and I just haven't been to it yet. But I did also pick up at the comic book shop this week is a new comic box, so I can
Ooh.
actually start putting the books in that I'm going to read. So
That
I
is
have
now
I have them all
your
now in a
to
space.
to be read box.
That is my to be read box. This is the one
All
that stays
right.
out in the studio. So as I get all the books, I can put them in order and then
They're
just
all in one
grab them
spot.
and just all in one spot and then just grab them, read the series, then bag and board them and put them away. That's the plan. Whether it
Okay.
works out, I don't know. But for now, at least I have a box to put them in. And it's funny because it's been a while since I bought a new box. It,
Mm-hmm.
it costs that much. It was $4.50. I don't know how
Right.
much boxes were going for when I did buy them because I used to buy them in bulk.
Right.
Usually I buy them in bulk from like Bags Unlimited, so you
Mm-hmm.
get a bigger discount. But it's been so long since I bought a comic book box that I was like conscious of the sale itself. Because sometimes I would just, I'm grabbing a bunch of comics, toss the box
Right.
there, not even think about the price
Whatever it
because
is, it
you
is.
know exactly. But when I went looking, it's like, oh, they have all types of other boxes. You got boxes that have prints of superheroes and stuff
Right.
on there, and it's like, that's cute, but I'm not going to pay that kind of money for it. For most of it to be put away, and all you ever go to see is this part of the box.
How
The
much
way
was that
I've been
one, did you
storing
say?
it, $4.50.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, the
Because I
other ones
think
that
those
have the prints with them
those
were
screen printed ones are
much
like
more.
$12 or something, right?
Yeah. So it's like, they're cute, they're neat, but it's like, I'm not interested in those.
Pit Goblin says that's cheap. They're $10 here. I think they might be like $6.50 at my LCS. I don't really remember, but I
Ah,
don't think they were $4.50.
yeah.
Hmm. How much are comic book boxes in Portugal, Paulo?
I have no idea.
Because he doesn't have single issue comics. They got trade paperbacks.
Yep.
Yeah.
I actually found a box full of hardcovers. I You know how sometimes you're like looking around on the internet and you see something that you want, but you're like, oh, I already have that. In
Yes.
this case, it's a shortwave radio. In the 90s, before the internet, I used to occasionally listen to shortwave radio. For those who don't know what shortwave radio is, we have our regular AM and FM radio. which you get from your local nearest big cities. Shortwave radio bounces all around the atmosphere. It's not high quality like FM, but you can pick up stations from half a world away. And you'd always find the craziest stations on shortwave radio. All those people are now on the internet, and you can find them on YouTube like that. But in
They're
the
called
90s, if you
podcasts.
wanted to hear crazy conspiracy stuff, you had to listen on shortwave radio and find the stations. So I used to occasionally listen to it. And in the beginning of the 90s, I got they're little portable radios too. They're not even the ones that you can also broadcast over shortwave, like ham radio is sort of shortwave. So I had this little one, with a dial, had AM, FM shortwaves. You'd aim the antenna, and then somewhere near the late 90s, I got this little fancier digital one. I was like, ooh, you can save the stations and did. And for 30 years, it sat like in that corner. It was only this big. Sat in like that corner of my studio. But I hadn't listened to it for like a decade. So I put it someplace. Where I put it, I don't know. So like last weekend, I was looking all over because I was on Amazon, and they have these new fancier shortwave radios with flashing lights on them and stuff for like $80. I'm like, I really don't need to spend $80 for something I already have just because it's got cool buttons and flashing lights. So I started looking. I was like, oh, I think it's in the box at the top of the closet. Went over the box at the top of the closet. Turns out that was the box from the new one with the old one in it. I was like, well, where did I put the new one? I still haven't found it, but I found a box of collected editions and hardcovers. I was like, oh, I didn't even remember what was in there. I was like, I must really not cared about these ones. They're in the box in the top of the closet that I can't even get to. But I ended up, there's like, I gave away 2 books that were in. There was the Batman Black Mirror hardcover. Gave that to one of my students who's a Batman fan. And there was some old Iron Man book in there, and I gave it away. But there's also like, I got to figure out who to give these to. Remember I told you there was a time around like 2008, 2010 where I was buying like those Marvel Premiere Edition hardcovers? Which what they would do was every 4 or 5 months, they'd collect 4 or 5 issues into a Marvel Premiere Edition hardcover, which would go for about $20, which about was, with a discount was about the same as the issues. So I was reading the Matt Fraction Iron Man that way for like a year and a half. So I got like 6 or 8 of these Iron Man hardcovers sitting up there that I'll never look at again. So I'm like, I got to give those away to someone now. But I still haven't found that radio.
Shortwave was never popular in Europe. If we wanted to do long distance broadcasting, we used long wave.
Oh, shortwave was never popular anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not telling you it was popular in you, but the craziest of the crazies would be, you'd find crazy religious programs. You'd find the Numbers station from Lost. You'd find,
Right.
I'd pick up stuff from Europe, but it was not mainstream anything.
Right. Because those people were probably not paying a broadcasting fee.
No.
But I remember when I was a kid, I found a long wave station on the car radio.
Mm-hmm.
I was just messing with it. We were parked somewhere, and I was messing with it. Okay, let me see if I can find something on a LW. Hey, something. Never found it again. And even medium wave doesn't exist here anymore. The last time there was one radio station on medium wave in Portugal about 20 years ago, but nobody bothered putting their radios on MW. So and they don't transmit in medium wave anymore. I suppose somewhere in Eastern Europe you might still find some, but not in Western Europe.
Mm-hmm. Undead Quinn says those boxes are 10 in Canada. Tit Goblin says a lot of those boxes are printed here in Canada, And then it comes and says, we still pay more still. Number of stations. There we go. You sent your shortwave radio into the future so it can suck there too. Yes. A throwback to that insult to Fabian. One of my
Yeah, I never got into like shortwave or anything like that, or even ham radios. But in the '80s, my dad Wilson Sr. was really into CB radio.
Okay.
So he would be, so every now and then, when I visit him in the summer, he would spend hours on it, kind of like how we spend hours on YouTube,
Right,
that
right.
type of thing, just going through. And I remember flipping through channels and stuff like that, and you would just have not people talking to each other. You would just have one guy just speaking and constantly talking. I couldn't even tell you what he was talking about. It probably was one of those conspiracy theorists
Yeah. Because that's what
talking
they
about
all
stuff,
were.
because that's what, and they're just constantly talking and what have you. And every now and then, depending on where you were, you could sometimes pick up CB talk on television.
Oh, yeah.
Every now and then you would find, like, in between channels, if you hold it correctly, on a channel that isn't really broadcasting, but you can get sound off of it. I remember listening to CB radio, especially if so, because I know I saw that when my cousin used to also play around with the CB radio. So it was in the house
What
with
was your
him.
father's handle?
It was Spanish for pigeon
Okay.
was the handle. Palomo.
Did you have a handle?
I think it was like Palomo Jr. because I only did it when I was at his house.
Little
So I
pigeon.
myself never owned one
Okay.
that I can think of. No, I don't think I ever did. And it's funny. The last time I visited my dad in Puerto Rico, 15 or more years ago, he still had a CB radio that he pulled out of a drawer one day, and he decided, I think I'm going to tinker with this today.
I'm old enough to remember the CB radio craze of the 70s. That was something. All of a sudden, everybody was buying CB radios and talking to each other.
Oh yeah. Keep on trucking.
Convoy.
And Convoy. My stepdad was in the movie Convoy.
He was.
Yeah, I
Oh.
found this out because he was living in Hollywood. And that's the only movie he was ever in. He was dressed up as a police officer, and he points out that's him jumping out of the way of the trucks, kind of a thing. And it was like, oh, that's pretty neat. I don't think his name is anywhere on the credits
He was an extra.
on it, but he was an extra. And he was like, I worked for a couple of days and it was fun, but he never kept with it.
Let me show you another horror book.
Was he credited in Convoy?
I don't know. I never went. It was one of those things. He told me this when I was like 12 or 13 because it came up on HBO. And at that time period, it was like there was no real way to look anything up. And then it was one of those kind of memories that I completely forgot about until I think we were either talking here or I was looking up something and people were talking about Convoy. It's like, oh, wait a minute. I remember my dad telling me this story, but I never went to look it up. So I'll probably check IMDb later on tonight.
Because who knows?
I can check it right now. What's his name?
Frederick Hansen.
Anything like my grandfather, he could have just made it up. He would tell us tall
That's
tales.
the other thing too. There's been plenty of stories that he has told where I'm sitting there going, wait, things are not adding up. When I was a kid, it made sense, but it's like,
no.
Did you hear the song on the radio? I played drums on this.
Doesn't appear to. He was an extra, right?
He said it was an extra. No speaking part.
Right. Okay. So he's not credited. They usually don't credit extras.
Right.
The only Frederick here is a Fred J. Brown for sound effects.
Yeah, it would have been if he did his full name, it would be Frederick D. Hansen.
Yeah, but no. There are 58 people credited, and but he's not here now. Sorry.
Let's see. Friar Tuck says, my parents used to have an old police and fire department scanner. Everybody had those in the 70s and 80s too. It's how they'd keep track of what was going on locally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, here
Kit Goblin says,
you can tune in to the police frequencies, but you can't talk on it.
right. That's how it always, the radios were always listen only.
Yeah,
Kit
same thing
Goblin.
with the CB radios, where there were channels that were for emergency use only, and we knew
Right.
which ones they were at the time. I don't remember which one it was. Might have been 3, but I don't recall.
Tit Goblin, our former archaeologist, says excavations up in the Arctic, all my Inuit co-workers were obsessed with CB radios because they were the lifeblood to connect all the hamlets. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And our next horror book of the week is Feral. And this is the one that's like a zombie story with cats. And this issue was straight up horror. Over the last issue, the oh, look at those waves in there, oversaturated paper. Come on, give me a good
Oh yeah.
paper stuff. Look at that. The cats have been on the run. A giant, instead of zombies, it's been like this especially virulent rabies outbreak. So all the animals have gone rabid. The humans were trying to round up the animals to put them down. So our house cats here were trying to escape and survive. And like for the last issue, there was this cat lady who was rabid herself or had some other disease they explained, which was making her crazy. And these cats were trying to escape her house. They ended up in the basement. They were trying to open this door, but then at the end of last issue, the lady, it appeared she died in front of the door. So now they're in the basement. They can't get the basement door upstairs open. They can't get the woman is too big to move, so they're trapped down there trying to figure out what to do. They eventually get hungry because they start starving. So they decide they have no choice but to eat the lady so they could get through the door. But as they start eating her, she wakes up. And then, of course, more horror happens as she captures them again in kitty carriers. And this was just like a straight up horror issue. And they go back, and there was like rabid cats in the house and regular cats in the house, and the rabid ones ate all the regular. I was just like, oh my, there was just carnage in this issue of Feral. So, and this, once again, straight up horror, this issue. Good stuff. By Tony Fleece is the writer, and what's her? Trish Forstner and Tone Rodriguez are our artists, with Brad Simpson on color. So good, really good issue here. And once again, creeped me out. Creeped me out. Which isn't usual for comics. I mean, I think I would have to say that the effects of the comics code are officially gone from the comics I read. Because I always said for years, even though 10 years after the comics code was gone, I think we were still feeling its effects. In that there were still things you weren't allowed to do. Or on the flip side, you would do the things you weren't allowed to do. It was like that was the whole point of the comic, to do the things you weren't allowed to do, which meant you were still thinking about the code. I think that's gone now, which is a good thing.
Yeah. I always wondered what comics would be like if the code was never even in place. I talked to a buddy of mine, and she was like, "Oh, if the code wasn't in place, we all the books would be like Faust." That's where she thought. That's where she thought it was going to end up if we never had the code.
I don't think that happened in parts of the world without a code. So
No, what you probably have had was that guys like Kurtzman and John Severin would probably have had more liberty to do something smarter.
right.
But they would still be hamstrung by what the publishers would let them do. Because
mainstream comics would still be mainstream comics mostly.
Right.
But there might have been some stuff more sophisticated and adult, not infantile, because comics were completely infantilized.
Right. EC probably could have become something different. I'm not sure that there would have been a necessity for something like Warren magazines to appear, because they were essentially made to escape from the code. I always found that ridiculous because to me hey, I'm a concerned mom who goes to the grocery store, and I find a Warren magazine in 1959 and look inside, and there are still drawn pictures. It's still to me that's a comic. I can't let. There's no way I'm going to let little Johnny shop here.
Yeah.
I don't care. Oh, it's different because of the size, so it's not. It doesn't have to be code approved. The concerned mom won't care.
Yeah,
But I don't think a concerned mom was ever part of the picture. This was all Wurzum just selling his.
No, what I mean exactly. No, what I mean is that concerned mom would not care that the comic, that the magazine did not have to be code approved.
Right.
As far as she was concerned, if there was any sort of paper thing that had the potential to have naked breasts inside, it was supposed to be burned. So it wouldn't. The fact that Warren existed to get away from the code was meaningless because anyone could have complained that they existed anyway.
Yeah.
I think the difference is it was the comics industry who came together to make the code.
Right.
There was no industry, there was no magazine industry coming together to make a code, so you can just exist as another magazine.
Yeah.
For good or bad.
Yeah, and you didn't rack Erie.
Yeah, it wasn't racked with the comics, so no one noticed. It just blended in with the other magazines.
Yeah, you put them with the gun magazines and
yeah. See, Tit Goblin says, reread Strong and Free this week. I seem to remember that was a monthly for you, Jared. It's flying off the shelves this week. Strong and Free. That doesn't sound familiar. I don't think I read anything named Strong and Free. I don't think I remember seeing anything named Strong and Free.
Does not sound familiar to me.
Mm-hmm. Any other comics, Wilson?
Yes. So
what do you got there for us?
We also have Absolute Batman #5.
Oh, it's a Canada versus the USA comic. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Absolute Batman #5, which I think issue #1 is up to its 6th printing.
I know I went back to buy a few back issues from Midtown. I don't know if I have all 5 yet because I started with issue 4.
Okay.
And I ordered the back issues. So I think I'm actually missing issue 3.
Mm-hmm.
Is the one that I need to get so I can read these. But so far, just flipping through it, it's interesting artwork.
Right.
I don't know exactly where the story, what takes place in the story, because there are supposed to be some differences. I think he may not be a millionaire, but I'm not positive. Again, I'm only.
I think that's it. He's not a millionaire.
Hearsay and stuff like that.
I remember hearing that.
But some very nice artwork.
Who's drawing it? Let me zoom in on you here.
The Absolute Batman Part 5. Like they might have hid the.
They like to hide those.
Oh yeah.
It's not on the cover.
Scott Snyder is the writer. Nick Dragotti.
Oh, Nick. Yeah, I know him from his indie stuff. Nick Dragotta.
Right? Dragotta, okay. So he's the artist. Colorist is Frank Martin.
I think he drew East of West that I bought.
Lettered by Clayton Cowell. There's your credits page at the back of the book.
Of course. Where else would you put it?
Yes.
It's a movie. The credits go at the end.
And I saw a house ad here that I was not to say taken aback, but it's like,
A house ad for
yeah, for DC in general. But the thing that I flipped through it real quick, and it's like it looks like an old ad. So I was just it was weird if it is, or it's just that it's a so DC All in 2025. But it was like, how many times have we seen this kind of an image?
Oh
So for a
yeah,
second there, I thought it was just an old ad.
all in. Is that the Superman line of?
I am not sure what this
'Cause I
is.
see Superman and Shazam. So
Right, so it has the typical Justice League members: Doctor Fate, Zentara. I'm not sure if that's Blue Beetle or not. It's a female, so it's, I think, Batgirl. It looks like it's just a regular roster, which is interesting. Is they have a woman in the what you call it outfit, the Challengers of the Unknown.
Challengers of the Unknown outfit. Oh, look at that.
So it's like, don't know what
Huh.
they're leading up to. I haven't picked up the DC catalog to see what might be the next big event they may be going. And this issue has a backup story with Zatanna, so she's getting a #1 issue. But I've been hearing so much good stuff for Absolute Batman, so it has me interested enough to at least pick up the books. And one of these days, I'm going to read them.
One of these days.
One of these days.
Let's see. My fourth horror book of the week is Creepshow in Love.
That's the one with the Archie kind of cover.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've especially been liking these covers on it. This is one of those books that, I wish I could get all the covers too, because they're pretty good, but I'm not. I'm only going to get one.
Yeah. I don't
But
blame you.
and this is also one where there's 3 stories in this one, as opposed to there's usually 2 in the regular one. But let's see, who even does this cover? Bland, something with a B. Oh, Chris Burnham and Brian Reber, I think this is. Yeah, Chris Burnham. There we go. Brian Reber must have colored it. And I have to say, like when I say I like these for their lack of twist ending. I mean, there really wasn't a twist ending. Like the first story was about, I guess you could say this kind of as a twist ending, but not really. It was about this creepy serial killer guy who likes to kill couples in love, and and there's actually 2 endings, but at the first ending, the couples in love turn out to be cops who kill him, shoot him down. Like that's
Okay.
not much of a twist, but that's
No,
what I liked
that's
about it.
I guess that works as the twist to the character that he thought he
Yeah.
was going to get away with. So he gets his comeuppance, and that makes sense.
And then the next one is Curse. Yeah, that's what I like about them. There's not like a twist for a twist's sake at the end. It's like, here's a killer. He got killed.
So
First
when asked about
Casanova.
that comic, can you say that it is what it is?
No, I cannot say that. I will not say that under. Yeah, Sleepy says, hi, I like Ice Cream Man for its lack of twists. Yeah. It's like any other story. Bad, things just happen like any other story. Like in this one, which is a young kid who's buying a love potion. And the guy who's giving him the love potion is like, I don't know if I should give this to you so young. He's like, okay, here's what I want you to do. Think of the head of a straight pin. And then I want you to think of half of that. That's how much of this you put under one tiny little, not even a drop under each ear. And then you look at the person who you want to fall in love with you. Do not, under any circumstances, use more than that, because bad things can happen. So of course, that's page 1. You know bad things are going to happen.
Yeah. Give him the amount you just told him.
So he gets into an accident, spills it all on him. A meter maid sees him, falls in love with him, starts killing people to be with him, and then the story goes on from there. But it's like there's no twists, there's just mayhem.
Yeah.
That's what, made for a nice horror story. And once again, here's one Penguin Avenger where this crazy guy goes on a date with this girl, drugs her up, takes her brain, and puts it in a penguin's body. Turns out that's his hobby. He finds sad women and puts their brains in the bodies of animals so he can play with the animals.
As one
That
does.
also does not end well. But there's no twist, really. It just doesn't end well. That's what I like. I wonder who owns the Creepshow trademark. Was it a movie first or a Stephen King book? I think it was a movie. Let's see what it says in our indicia. Published by copyright 2025 Cartel Entertainment. Creepshow is a trademark of Taurus Entertainment Company. So I think that's what it says, Taurus. Let me pull out my magnifier again and make sure.
That's not the same as Tor books, right?
No, Taurus, the bull.
Oh.
Taurus.
Okay,
Taurus Entertainment. Creepshow is a trademark of Taurus Entertainment Company, whoever they might be. Let's see if they've got for Skybound Entertainment, for Image Comics. Nothing for Taurus Entertainment.
Yeah, but it's here on the U.S. patent trademark website. I see 041 for entertainment services and for clothing. And
Taurus.
for beer. But for beer it's somebody else.
Man.
Warped Wing Brewing Company.
I didn't realize they were drinking their own eyeballs.
So that's not the beer. That's the Taurus Entertainment Company from Delaware. Let's find out.
But you can get Creepshow Volume 3. And once again, you can... I'm the sucker. Because Creepshow Volume 3, the collected edition is $14.99. So the collected edition is $15. And I think I paid $5 an issue for 5 issues. So if you bought it in the single issues, that's $25. By the collection, it's $15. So I'm really a sucker for buying the single issues. But I really like looking at the covers, I have to say. Oh, is this that Beneath the Trees guy? What's his name? Pat Horvath. I think that's the Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees guy. That's his artwork. Who I just mentioned was doing that news story with Boom, I think it was. Where was that one? What was that one on? Nope, not there. I guess it was in the back. In the back. So there've been, I think, 3 volumes of Creepshow and maybe 3 or 4 specials. But I've been enjoying them all. I think it's been a better anthology than the couple issues I read of that EC Comics stuff. Yep. Sleepy's is probably a Hollywood holding company. Yeah. Something like that.
Most
The
likely.
Taurus of Minos, hence Minotaur. There we go.
Okay,
The
so
bull in the mid. Delaware's a state with some special corporate rights laws. Yeah.
yeah,
Get
but
away with a lot in
they're
Delaware.
just registered there. They're based in Los Angeles.
Yeah, you should try Creepshow. I've enjoyed them all. Like what I can remember, I bought I think Creepshow Volume 1 was 6 issues. And Creepshow Volume 2 was just solicited the first issue. And I was like, do I want to buy it? Did I like it enough to buy Volume 2? Then I pulled the issues off my shelf, and I had such fun just looking at those 6 covers. Because the cover, I just like the covers on Creepshow a lot. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to put Volume 2 on because just looking through the covers brought me joy. So I'm going to put Volume 2 on my pull list. Because sometimes that's enough. Like I said, I enjoyed reading them too. So, any more comics, Wilson?
I do have another one. So I have Amazing Spider-Man issue number 67.
Uh-huh.
So this continues the 8 deaths of Spider-Man. He's given a costume from Doctor Doom, who's now the Sorcerer Supreme. And
Oh,
there's
that's
some other magical characters here on the cover and X-Men. So this is the current storyline that's going by, and that's the most I could tell you because I haven't read any of this.
the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man.
Yeah, he has, I believe, the ability to die 8 times. So it's almost like a video game at that
That's
point.
an ability you really wouldn't want to use.
No, not at all. Because who knows if you still have the do you have the full memories of each and every time,
Ah,
and what have you?
I saw there's going to be a Spider Juggernaut or something like that.
It's very well passable.
I think I saw an ad for that or something.
They've been doing a lot of like crossover type things where they're merging characters.
Oh yeah, they do that all the time now.
Yeah, so that's the new thing. And the Juggernaut is in this issue,
Aha.
where he's
Nobody
currently
can
an
stop.
X-Men. I believe he's currently an X-Men without,
Oh yes, he was.
being a mutant.
When those Chris Jeruso covers ones, I think he was in those ones that I was reading.
We could do a mashup of the Juggernaut and the opening scene from Pulp Fiction. When is that? Okay, what does the Juggernaut look like? He's big. Does the Juggernaut look like a bitch?
See, Friar Tuck says, I understand Valiant from the 90s after Shooter left gets knocked, but I kept collecting because I thought the stories were still top notch, especially compared to Image. I didn't buy any Valiant from the 90s. I completely missed that whole era because I wasn't buying any superhero stuff.
I was buying a lot of them. I enjoyed Internal Warriors
Mm-hmm.
and Harbinger, because that was the
Right.
closest to the X-Men they had. And I did like their crossover event. I had a lot of fun with that.
I read a
Mainly,
little of it a few years ago, and it was solid.
yeah, I enjoyed it mainly because you had the Eternal Warrior in this crossover event. You had his young version and his old version. And it
Mm-hmm.
was interesting because the old version didn't remember everything that happened because they brought into the stories about the fact that they were mind wipes and stuff like that. And he got wiped a few times. But what was interesting with the story, again, dealing with time travel and stuff like that, young Eternal Warrior gets a scar and then it appears on old Eternal Warrior's face. So it's like, so we already know the timeline is not exactly solid. Things can actually, things were changing. And that
Right.
was the other way it was messing with his head because it's like he doesn't remember exactly where they were. So I found that just in the concept itself interesting. And
Right.
I liked the Exo Mano War. You
Okay.
took Conan and you stuck him in an Iron Man armor. And I
Right.
thought that was fascinating. And so there was enough stuff going on crossover wise as well as this cohesive universe that for me worked well. And I enjoyed that immensely. Also, the house style and the way they were coloring their books and all that type of stuff for me was a lot of fun, especially those early Valiant years.
See, I didn't like that coloring style they did, which is they were shooting right from the colorist's coloring.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, in those days before computer coloring, a colorist would get a photocopy of the inked artwork, would use usually Dr. Martin's dyes and fill in the colors, what color, and put codes there. And then that would go to a color separator. And what the color separator would do was they would get opaque paint and paint on like these negatives of the artwork that which will eventually indicate where the color goes. What Valiant's coloring process was different in that it was full color, in that they skipped the hand separating colorist part. And so Valiant, they actually, I think it was still photocopies, but they made them on a watercolor paper. And then the Valiant colorists would use Dr. Martin's dyes or watercolor, and they would paint in all the colors. And then instead of going to a separator, it would go get photographed, and they would photomechanically make the color right from the colorist's work. Hence, you can see like the watercolor brush strokes and stuff at times. The color wasn't all even. Here, let's see if we can. You can see, it looks like watercolor.
This is a color guide
Yeah,
from when
there's
I
a color
colored
guide.
Wolverine 147. These were mostly markers,
Right.
the Tria markers that I use, so you can see how it bled through the back.
And that would go to a color separator. What Valiant did different is they'd photomechanically reproduce it right from that guide, which was more expensive.
And I don't know if they were doing the blue line technique of that. So they would
No, it
have
wasn't
the
even Blue
layer.
Line.
No,
I
it wasn't.
actually saw it. I was in their offices. It
Oh, okay.
wasn't even Blue Line. It was they would go. It was transparent watercolor right over the black ink line, which would be on like not the photocopy paper you've got there, but a heavier like watercolor-ish paper.
Yeah, it would have to be on a thicker paper because
Yeah,
they would have definitely had it would have buckled if
right,
they
right. There was
didn't.
less buckling, but yeah, they shot right from that. Let me see if I've got somewhere back here. I have one
Pages
Valiant
for
book.
Thor.
There it is.
Scarlet Witch came to visit.
My one Valiant trade. Let me see if I can find a page
To 19.
that demonstrates.
Can never have enough superheroes punching Nazis.
Yeah. Let's see. Can we see? All right. Maybe in this.
One of their trades, I think it might have been, maybe was it Harbinger? I thought had a how they did coloring type thing in it.
Right.
I don't recall. It's
Like
been so long since I looked at those books.
this blue that's back here in the background. That isn't like an airbrush effect. That's watercolor. And you can sort of see it like in his face here, the side of his face, how the color's not even. There's like watercolor. His cheek is darker because of the watercolor. You couldn't get those kind of effects in the flat regular cover that was hand separated. Like even the little bit of shading in his body right there, like under his arm, is because that was watercolor. So they went a little darker with or Dr. Martin's.
Yeah, I think these were Doc Martens when I was coloring Spider Girl. And you can see how the paper is kind of wavy here
Right.
at the bottom because this is regular Xerox paper.
And that would be a solid blue in the background, rather than like it wouldn't be a gradient if it went to the hand separators. Usually, sometimes you can
Right.
tell them a gradient, but that often costs extra.
Yep. So that's why I think there's these A's here to tell them to airbrush.
You've got an airbrush there. There you go.
So it's basically from this blue
See,
to that blue to be an airbrush gradient. And I don't even remember if they even printed if the stars came out or not because I dotted those with white out.
and they could do effects like this. Let me show you this. Her breath. Going her breath there, going because that would just be like a white paint over the top.
Yeah.
Which you really couldn't do going through a color separator. So that's one of the things that made Valiant stand out in these days is their coloring. See, is this the one that was autographed? Don't remember. I guess not. I have Jim Shooter's autograph in one of these random. Oh, it's on the front. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Jim Shooter's autograph. 1639 of 2000. All right. I just picked that up at my local comic shop from years ago, and like 10 years ago. Let's see. Friar Tuck, don't get me wrong. I liked X-O Man of War. Stayed great, and I thought Bloodshot got better. Liked the direction Secret Weapons took once they introduced suits and didn't try to be the Avengers Valiant style. Or JLA, perhaps, Valiant style. Tit Goblin says, I always respect your choices, Wilson, and actually agree, but I hated those books. It had nothing for a preteen kid to get hyped about. He was too young. It didn't help their characters were old properties.
Evergreen.
Finity says, Photoshop separations, easy. Back in my day, we had to guess the correct CMYK breakdown and write down the numbers on an actual cape. Yep.
Yep.
Tit Goblin says, I did like the one Valiant 3D color comics, though.
That was the
I guess
Solar Man of War.
Guess I was old around the time of Valiant heyday, early 20s. Yeah, maybe buying Wizard magazine hype. But there were some good comics. Valiant comics were generally pretty well written. The ones I went back and read, I was like, oh, I can understand why these were popular. They've had some good art, and they were pretty well written.
They were, yeah, I agree that they were well written, and Shooter did a great job keeping the continuity.
Yeah.
Of everything that was going on. So for
That's
me,
what he was good at.
yeah. Yeah. So for me, it was like I enjoyed the house style. I enjoyed the characters, because they were, and a lot of them were, a good chunk of them were Go-Key books, characters I had no care for. But, Magnus Robot Fighter became one of my favorite books because I liked and I even went looking for some of the older books just because I love those covers because they were most of those were painted or all of them were painted covers, and I think it was Russ Heat was the artist on those, and I just enjoyed that open kind of John Romita seniorish style. So for me, that was like I enjoyed that type of stuff. So it made me actually go investigate where these books came from, just because how much I enjoyed the originals.
Sleepy says Valiant were solid, dependable comics. Tit Goblin says New Universe all the way. No, thank you. You and Howler Mouse, I think, were the two New Universe fans.
I picked most of those up as well when they came out.
I tried each new issue, but
I couldn't find
Hard to-
anything that I really, really liked. I thought that Justice would be the most interesting, but then they revealed.
Starbrand was the only one I liked.
I can agree with that.
Jim Shooter wrote
DP7.
that one, and he was trying to
DP
keep it as like realistic as possible. He
Yeah.
was trying to make it a down to earth superhero story.
I like DP7 because it was an interesting thing working with those powers. Spitfire visually I liked, but there was it's like when you have Iron Man, you don't really have this clunky thing. And what was the other ones? Was Kickers part of that?
I can't remember.
Yeah, Kickers were the football team.
Right. That I picked up just because it was wild in itself. But I also liked Night what was it? Night
Night
Mask?
Mask. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the Sandman before Sandman.
Yeah.
It had
Right.
Keith Giffen art.
Robert Tuck says, yes, Sleepy, didn't have to wait 6 months to a year later for the next issue. And Howard Lowe says it's jam with this 90s comics love. His 80s comics love, too. Yes, Starbrand worked till they forced Shooter out. Yeah, that's when it all...
Yeah,
I
after
stopped buying
Shooter
it
was
then.
gone, at that point it was like
Kickers.
destroy the new universe because it was
Which was the
connected
one...
to Shooter.
All I remember about it was I found it annoying because it was about some guy who was an alien from another world. He was kind of a barbarian-ish guy, but it was modern times. And he could just see the evil people. So he'd just like kill them. And he's like, what? You Earthlings can't see when someone's evil?
Was that Justice?
It
Yeah,
may
that
have
was
been
Justice.
Justice.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was the Punisher from space.
Yeah, but the thing is, they then retconned because the guy was high on drugs when he was doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So
It was just
Starbrand
a
did not
normal
seem
guy.
especially realistic to me, story or dialogue. Quack, quack, dropped it. If you only read one issue, then it wouldn't seem realistic to you, because it built up over time. Like one thing I remember that happened, that I feel like he was trying to make it realistic, was he started getting out of shape. Starbrand, whoever the guy was, he had to turn off his powers and start lifting weights because he was relying on his powers to do, to lift it because he was super strong. But it was his powers lifting this. It was his powers doing all. He was getting no exercise because his powers were doing everything. But that's one of the little touches I remember about it that I liked. He's like, oh, crap, I'm falling out of shape. I got to turn off my powers and exercise. So he had to actually end up doing that. And he couldn't just lift up a building by one of its corners, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, they really went into the minutia of what powers
Right.
and how it would work and stuff like that.
So I can see why dropping that after one issue, you wouldn't understand its realism, because I don't think that was even in the first. I don't know how much of that was in the first issue.
Yeah, I don't recall. And it was John Romita Jr. artwork, so I
Eric P
enjoyed
says,
it.
no love for Mark Howard, Merc?
No, not from.
I don't even remember it.
Nobody does. The Brazilians tried to push Cyforce because it was a little bit like X-Men or the New Mutants, although they hadn't started the New Mutants at the time. But that was it. It was the teen gang, and the teen gangs were what was selling better for them. But well, ultimately, had a problem was that nobody had costumes, so they didn't look like superheroes to me.
Right.
But again, I was 8 or 9, so
he was a merc, Yeah. Finity says that's a good idea. Now I have to buy the trade paperback. Has Starbrand been released in a trade paperback?
I'm not sure.
No.
I think I may have seen something in the last 10 years where they did it, but I'm not 100% sure.
They tried to do some sort of collected editions of some of the titles. I'm not sure how far they went.
See, Tit Goblin says, my first comics were Christmas stocking comics. New Universe, the team and the A-Team and Captain Carrot. It ruined comics for me for years. The A-Team. I remember that. I think I may have bought the first issue. Friar Tuck says, I was not collecting during the new universe, but yet other dead universe that I've been working on from the dollar boxes the past few years. Ah, yet another dead universe.
Yep.
Do you know there's a Overstreet price guide to dead universes?
I
Yeah.
may have
It
known
came
that, but
out
it
like
doesn't
this
sound.
last year sometime.
It
I think it's
doesn't.
actually volume 2 even. They've got a price guide to dead universes. It's like stuff like New Universe.
Right.
And it gives you the price guide to them and I guess tells you what they all are.
Nice. Keep an eye out for that. It's been a
Friar
while
Tuck.
since I've gotten Overstreet.
And it might even be called the Overstreet Guide to Dead Universes or Failed Universes or something like that. Why does Mark Hazard remind me of Firearm from Malibu? Another one I've never read, so I can't tell you. Great memories, Tid Goblin, Friar Tuck says, of the A-Team in his Christmas stocking.
Malibu. Malibu was fascinating to watch it grow because it was
Yeah.
the first time I saw bus ads on buses and bus
Wow.
stops in Westchester, and TV commercials for Malibu
Wow.
comics and stuff like that. So that was a lot of hype, and I bought into it. Had gotten all those books because
They were doing pretty well
they
for a
were
while.
doing well at the very beginning. They were doing well.
The only one I ever bought was the Barry Windsor Smith one.
Rune.
Rune, yeah, that was it. I think that was the only Malibu comic I bought.
I picked up all that whole run when it first
I was
came out.
so out of mainstream superhero stuff by the 90s, so it's no wonder I didn't pick up Valiant and Malibu. Tid Goblin. I was always interested in Malibu Dinosaurs for Hire. Yeah, I passed on that one. That was a TV show? No. Someone did that was it Dinosaurs for Hire? Someone did that Dinosaurs TV show as a comic. I can't remember
Dinosaurs for
who.
Hire was creator owned, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
I'm thinking of that UK Dinosaurs TV show.
You might be thinking of Cadillac and Dinosaurs.
No.
That was a comic into a TV show or a video game.
There was a show in the UK that was popular that they tried to bring to the US. I think it was just called Dinosaurs. It was like puppets of dinosaurs.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, that was like a Jim Henson TV show thing, but that wasn't connected to the comic book.
No, they made a comic out of it, I think.
Oh,
Someone
okay.
did at some time in the early 90s.
Yes, they
okay. Yeah, because
yeah.
even Married with Children had a comic book. So
Right.
Now was it Now Comics?
Now Comics most likely did it.
Yeah, they did a lot of. Tid Goblin says Men in Black was Malibu. Yeah, and Sleepy says I bought a bunch of Malibu last week. I was shocked how bad the color was. LOL. I remember their color being over the top, and they were one of the first to digitize too. So there's probably some
Yes.
early Photoshop work in there.
Oh, lens flares everywhere.
Oh, you could not escape lens flares because the editors thought they were cool.
Yep, I did them too.
Yeah.
I have a Thor cover for Comics Buyer's Guide, and that was all filters. Lightning in the back with all filters. The Thor's hammer was a granite filter. Oh,
all
it was
obvious.
all gaudy. If it,
You look at it now and go, oh.
But
Oh,
I
yeah.
imagine the first
it-
guy
it
that
was
was
published.
going through. I imagine that the first guy was going through the computer coloring program, and oh, I can do a lens flare. Look at this! I can do a lens flare.
Oh,
That's
Yeah.
how everybody started doing it.
and his
exactly
editor
what-
went, wow, that is so cool. Give me more
Yeah.
of those.
Yeah.
Eric
But
P
this
says
book is black and white.
Nocturnals were my Malibu series.
But this book is black and white. I don't care. Give me one of those.
Heh.
Yep, the black and white books did have lens.
I picked up an issue of Deadpool
Ooh,
just because it had a
Ooh.
Scott Koblish cover. So I went with the Scott
Eh.
Koblish cover on Deadpool, a little busy. But this one made me realize there's so many Spider-Man I don't know who they have. Once again, it was a solid issue. It was pretty well. Cody Ziegler is the writer. And Andrea DeVito is the artist, who I remember doing stuff for CrossGen 20 years ago. Guru
okay.
effects color artist, Joe Sabino, the letterer. But it was a story of Deadpool and Deadpool's daughter who are hired to take out Spider-Man, to kill Spider-Man. And Deadpool's daughter, he's trying to teach her how to be an assassin, but she's like, really? Assassinating Spider-Man? Does that sound like it's something we should be doing? And it turns out he's like, he ends up, he didn't assassinate him, he shot him, but he was going to kill him eventually. Not Spider-Man, but someone named Shift, who is one of the Spider-Man, except he's really big. Some guy named Shift, who's in a Spider-Man costume, which isn't even a Spider-Man. But then, I believe this is Mark Morales Spider-Man comes to rescue him. So then we get our
Miles.
Deadpool, Spider-Man, Deadpool's daughter fight from the cover. But I was like, I don't know either of these Spider-Man.
Just a correction. Miles Morales. Mark
What did I
Morales.
say?
You said
What did I
Mark
say?
Morales.
Mark
You said
Morales.
Mark was
Mark
the inker.
Morales is the inker.
Is the inker.
Miles Morales. Then the big reveal at the end is Miles Morales now has a spectral spider sword. I don't know where that came from.
That's new.
Yeah, I guess it was new at the end. Like I said, it was okay. It was a solid Deadpool issue. I didn't. I think the Carnage, Eddie Brock Carnage issue was better, but this was a solid read. If you're a Deadpool fan, you'll probably like it. Oh, there's another Doom back cover. Was this one of the covers, Wilson?
No, that's for issue number 2, so that hasn't come out yet.
Ah, okay. Pretty nice cover. Cover by Ben Harvey. The status quo shattering event continues. Oh, I guess so. I thought it was in a different continuity, but it must be in the regular the 616 continuity. Ba, 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 ba.
Shattering. Nothing will be the same again.
Yeah. And the other not quite horror book I got was Grimm. Issue number 21. This is the one that's about Grim Reapers. Pretty good
yes.
book. Turned into a romance book at the end. With a reveal that I won't bother you with because you're not reading it. Stephanie Phillips is the writer. Flaviano is the artist. And Rico Renzi, I guess, is the colorist. But another solid issue of Grimm from Boom Studios, now owned by Penguin. Look at 21 issues of this have come out. Not bad. Not bad. Let's see. Where's Tit Goblin? If anyone's interested, 90s Greatest Hero Nightman is on Tubi. Saxophone of the day, punching villains in the night. I have never, to this day, I have not watched Nightman.
I watched it and I enjoyed it for the sheer silliness of it, and the best part about it, and I'm not raising the bar or anything about it. The best part about it, they reintroduced Animal Man from the 80s television show.
Huh.
So every now and then they would and it was played by the same actor, and it was almost like a backdoor pilot to bring it back. And they introduced his daughter, who could do the same type of thing.
I've always heard good things about Nightman. People are like, it was fun.
Yeah,
it wasn't the greatest movie ever, but it was fun.
For a 90s TV show with superheroes in it, it was fun. For just the sheer nonsense of it all.
No, wasn't Nightman a movie?
No, it was a TV series.
It was a TV
series
then I'm
based
on
something
the comic book
Nightman. The pilot episode was as usual a 2-hour movie.
Okay.
Which then break up into two episodes for syndication. And because it was produced by Glenn A. Larson, they got the Hoff to play the bad guy, to play one of the bad guys in the pilot. So you got everything. You got Nightman, you got the Hoff, and you got Manimal.
You eventually get
right.
Manimal, so it's like that.
The only thing
for me.
the only thing you needed was Battlestar Galactica.
Yep. You need at least a Cylon or something whose lights were going back and forth.
And of course, the latest issue of Spawn. But I'd like to point out the back does not say next issue still only $2.99.
Ooh.
This issue is only $2.99. But I wonder if the price is going up on Spawn with $3.62.
Has the backwater cutoff for that issue come up yet?
Not yet. I might have to
Okay,
drop
so-
it.
Ooh.
That's the reason I'm buying it. Well, it's actually pretty good, so I don't have to drop it. I don't want to. But Todd McFarlane's back to writing it. I got to say, these last two issues have been okay that Todd McFarlane has written. Because the previous issues that he wrote like 20, 25 issues ago, there was always parts that made me groan. I was like, oh. But these last two, I'm still skeptical, but he may have learned how to write a little better. I'm not 100% sure. But Brett Booth on the art, and Adelso Corona on the inks, Robert Nugent colors, Tom Orzechowski lettering, lots of big explosions. Everybody gets their powers back this issue. Where's that? There's a nice Brett Booth double page. Let me show you that one.
Brett Booth spent many years trying to make heads or tails of Jim Lee and Brendan Choi plots, so he can probably do the same for McFarlane.
No problem. But yeah, a solid issue. And I'm really enjoying Brett Booth's art quite a bit. I like the guy before him too, whose name I can't remember now, Carlos something. But Brett Booth's doing a nice job here. And this is the first time ever I've read a book with Brett Booth's art on it regularly. Not that I ever thought his art was terrible or anything like that, but I just never did before. Spawn 362. And I liked the line from, I didn't read the article. Somewhere Todd McFarlane was just interviewed on the expansion of all the Spawn books. And the headline was, Todd McFarlane says, you don't have to like all of them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a solid bit of advice. Buy the ones you like.
Yeah. You don't have to buy them all. Buy what you like.
Yeah, you like some in Twitch, you buy some in Twitch. You like Gunslinger Spawn, you buy Gunslinger Spawn.
Yeah. Titcom, I get the plots to Nightman in the episode of Seinfeld where Elaine dates a saxophone player mixed up.
Yeah. Well, and then you remember that Elaine used to date the Tick.
Titcom, you guys can keep Todd whenever he gets deported in April. Love checks and all. No way. You got to let him back into Canada.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and maybe the Spawn comics will have to start paying tariffs. Oh wait, all the comics have to start paying.
I also got my weekly final order. I also bought some really cheap X-Acto knives. I needed these were like 5 X-Acto knives plus a pack of, I don't know, 20 blades for $5.
Oh, okay.
Because they're knockoff. And these are so light, which is good because I needed an extra X-Acto knife to put in my commuting bag. Because I've been adding more and more supplies to my bag. Like in class this week, we were making some zines. And I was like, I really need an X-Acto knife in my bag to cut paper. So I was like, you know what? Let's get a new, because I didn't want, you know what I hate? I hate packing things up.
Yeah.
And whoops. I don't want to take my official, I've been using it since 1984 X-Acto knife and just pack it up every time. Plus it doesn't have a top like these ones do, a cover. So let me just spend $5 and get some new ones.
I like those covers.
Yeah. Makes it a lot easier to carry than if they don't have them.
Yeah. And I like to discontinue Apple colors as they come in.
Yeah.
But the real question is, did you get a new varnisher? I saw that the old one that you had gave up the ghost recently.
A new what?
Varnish, the
Oh, a burnisher.
burnish.
Yes, a burnisher. I think I did not get a new one yet. But what I did, I think I have another old one around here, but I can't find it. But I took, where is it? I did this before Joe Kaufman even mentioned it. Where'd it go? Where's my? I can't find it because it's short. Where'd it go? Oh, not there. I took it and I sanded it down. I don't know where the sanded down one went. It seems to have it's not in its spot. Oh well. So now it's just a shorter instead of being that tall, it's that tall.
Oh,
But
okay.
but I had some like 600 grit sandpaper, so I just sanded it down and made the edges tapered a little. So it's still usable, but of course it could break next time I use it. And it's weird that I can't find it right now. That's a little strange. Oh well. I'll find it some other time. But I do have a second one around here somewhere.
So the last book I have pulled off the shelf is the facsimile edition of Amazing Spider-Man 129.
Ooh. That's like a second printing of that kind. That I bought that I think sometime last year. Because that was one of those I went, do I have that already? Yes, I have that.
Right. So for me, it's like, this is definitely one of the holes in the collection that
Right,
I never
right.
got because it was always pretty expensive. I almost bought it in the 90s when I was working in the comic book shop. And then the guy who was the manager of the comic book shop had said if I really wanted, he'll sell me his at a pretty good price. And it was one of those things that I never caught up with him because
Ah.
once the comic shop got sold, because he was going to buy it, and the owner couldn't decide who to sell it to, and there
Mhm.
was two guys that he could have sold it to, and it's guy one and guy two. I really liked guy two because he would have hired me full time if the shop sold, but the shop sold to the guy one, and so I never got kept in touch with the guy. So it was like, so I never bought 129 because I thought I was going to get it from this other guy, and I never did. So it's like, all right, this will fill that hole for it. This is, you know, let's see if this says anything because you mentioned it might be a second print.
I don't even know if they would say second. I think what they do now is they put the date it was printed on somewhere. Like this was printed somewhere between
Yeah.
January 1st and January 18th, 2025.
Right. So it says here Amazing Spider Man number 129, facsimile edition, April 2025. And then it goes on to say it contains material originally published
Right.
in magazine form as Amazing Spider Man 1963, number 129.
Yeah. So I
Published
think
as a
that's,
one shot.
yeah. So I think that's what it wouldn't say first printing second. I may have the same one, except instead of April 2025, it says, May 2024. That's the only difference. Love checks.
And it even has a Marvel stamp.
Oh, look at that.
Look at
Cut that
that.
out and put it in your
You could
book.
cut it out and make it really look like an issue from back then. Evil Knievel motorcycle. Remember those.
Oh yeah. You know what I also bought this week that's funny? For my commuting bag, I said was making zines with the class. I have this which is a bone folder, not made of bone made of plastic, and it's used for folding paper. That's all.
Right.
So I was like, I need one of these for my bag, and I ended up. I was gonna buy this one again because I really like it, and this was like $10. But I was looking on Amazon and they didn't have this one anymore. So I couldn't get it. I was looking all around and I found this. It's a whole bookbinding kit.
Ooh.
So it's got like plastic ruler, bulldog clips, all for punching holes, little portable scissors, rope for binding, a little thimble, and it has two bone. It's got not quite as fancy a bone fold. It's got this bone fold and it had one more. I put the other one in my bag. So I was like, you know what? I got all this stuff for I think like $6. Some nice made in China junk. I'm like, you know what? I may as well get two bone folders and a bunch of bookbinding equipment for this because I couldn't get this one anyway. So those were my art purchases for the week.
Very nice.
And when they tell you teachers spend their own money on supplies, it's true. Oh, and I also bought, though it's not in here, a pocket sharpening stone to keep with the X-Actos because I have been sharpening, I've been using this same X-Acto blade since I think it was October 2023. Just keep resharpening it. Just rub it on here, and I'm like, it is so sharp.
Nice.
I'm like, why did I ever change X-Acto blades? You can just resharpen them. So I bought a little portable sharpener with me. So when I can sharpen my X-Acto blade before I use it in class.
I like that it's a whole belt loop type piece that you could just put it onto your belt. I have a theory that all guys are doing is just creating their own personal utility
Oh
belt.
yeah, first of all, I can't even keep it in this because there's no. I have it in another bag in my and like this like pocket is so tight
Yeah.
on the stuff. It was like impossible to put in and out. But my friend Rob, who I meet at the comic shop every week, has started being an everyday carry guy. Have you ever heard that? That's what guys do now. Once, like you said, they're building their own utility belts. Only you call it your everyday carry bag with your everyday carry stuff in it. And Rob is not a tool guy at all. But he has been so into, because he also does 3D printing. He doesn't like do design for 3D printing, but for the last few years, he's had a 3D printer and you can like download other people's designs and print them on your 3D printer, all sorts of stuff.
Right.
And he started getting like a pocket knife collection he has now. He made stands for his like watches and stuff. And he's got like flashlights he carries with him now. And he's got all this everyday carry stuff. And he's like, I don't even like working with tools. I like lining them up. I'm fucking around. It's like I'm never going to use any of these tools, but I like carrying them. I like making things for them and lining them all up on the dresser. So he's got the Batman utility belt, but he's not ever doing any Batman stuff with it.
Right.
Yeah, but who really needs to strap their sharpening stone onto their belt loop? I don't know. Somebody somewhere.
It's nice to have the option.
Yeah. It's like, where do I put this now? I got to put it someplace where it won't get, that place where you put bags you've got no use for but don't want to use. It'll go in with my camera straps. I got lots of those.
Okay.
And the last comic I got this week has a nice Peach Momoko cover. Bug Wars.
I saw that on the stands. That looked interesting. I
And
didn't
then
pick
it's
it up, but
got
that looked interesting. Oh,
production marks on the back. You can see the gripper tore into the paint. At first, no, it's funny. At first, I was like, see those little ants down there?
yeah. I thought it was at first. I thought it
I was
might
like,
be
is
part of
that
that.
part of the design? I don't think it is. These are all like gripper marks. Here, let me get it big so I can show you. These are all gripper marks for when the there we go. When it was pulled, those are the ants, and those are the gripper marks. They kind of go all the way up. But I was, so it's they're on the here's the other side where the gripper was. But I'm like, I'll just look at the front cover because this
Yeah.
was the only Peach Momoko one they had there. But overall, story just wasn't for me. Jason Aaron, Mahmood Ashrar, Matthew Wilson, and Becca Carey. Wasn't bad or anything. The whole concept is there's this backyard war going on between the ants and the beetles, and they have these like I don't know micronauts people who are like the ant people and the beetle people. And then it's extra size, $5 and probably 44 pages. So the first part, there's this eternal war going on between the ants and the beetles in the backyard. And then the family moves in. It's their old house. Their father was a bug scientist. And here's the older brother mowing the backyard for the first time in years. So it's like the disaster that was like a disaster happening to all the bugs. It stopped the bug war and wrecked them because he was mowing the land. But then then the story just gets weird. The father who died by bugs was like a bug scientist, and the older brother hates bugs because he saw when he was a little kid, he saw his father half eaten by bugs when he died. And the younger brother loves bugs. He inherited it for bugs. So it's like this weird. We got the two warring bug sides, and then we got the two brothers warring over bugs. It was just. I found it a little corny somehow. And then at the end, the younger brother gets shrunk down to join the bug war, I guess. But of course, the good thing is it comes with a map. You know how much I like maps with my books, so that was good. Like it wasn't bad. I just don't think it was for me.
So you're not going to give it a second issue?
Nah, I'm not. I don't even think I'm bothering with the second. It's also because I got so many comics this week.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna put what was that other one? Mine is a Lonesome Grave is gonna go on my pull list. Plus, I got all those Chris Geruso comics coming up in May. All those 15 covers I gotta get. That one just it's going to go into my bought only for its covers section though, so I will keep it because I like that cover. That's always the decision, which is another reason I kind of like these, AWA Cam Girl one-shots, is I never have to decide if I'm going to put it on my pull list or not. It's like, all right, I bought a one-shot, enjoyed it. I can put it in the one-shot section. Because I'll completely forget it in 5 years, and maybe I can go read it again. At least that's my plan. What are you working on tonight, Wilson?
I'm finishing up those Transformers sketch cards.
Okay.
So there's a subset type special that they're called combiner cards. So I'm basically taking an image that was originally sketched by Bob Budiansky, I believe,
Huh.
And so 9 cards together will make the actual pinup. So it's like recreating an original cover
Ah,
for it. So there's a few of us that are basically inking this cover as part of one of the special not prizes because they paid for it for the
Chase.
a chase. Yes, thank you. Uh, kind of a thing that was another tier in the creation of the Kickstarter type thing. Whatever crowdfund they did, this was like part of the extra artwork type stuff. So I'm
Okay.
finishing these up to get them back to the company as soon as possible. So this will be my weekend work.
Ah. Now, are you doing the entire cover in 9 cards? Is that how it working, or
Yeah, basically.
okay.
So
And
it's
how
pretty
how
much.
many how many 9 card sets are you doing?
I
Like
am
cover
only doing, I think, 10,
10, okay. So
10
it's
altogether.
90 cards?
90 cards.
That's
But
a lot of cards.
the way I set it up is I have all 9 cards on there, and I'm
Yeah.
basically just pretty much doing a pinup.
Yeah.
So it's I don't think of them as 90 cards. I think of them as just one image,
Right,
and
right.
I work on it that way. And these will probably theoretically be faster because I'm not, just doing one card at a
Right,
time,
it's not
so to
one
speak. Yep.
one image per card. There's one image for 9 of them.
Yes, exactly.
You
So
don't have to
that's
come up
the
with 90 images.
right, and I don't have to make up anything. It's like
Right,
I'm basically inking something that's already been drawn.
right.
So light boxing it and calling it a day as soon as I get it done, kind
Huh.
of a thing. So that's my work for the weekend.
Tit Goblin says you can't put a price on your friendship with Chris, but if you ever wanted wanted to, it'd be $52 a friendship when they come out. Let's see, 15 issues at $4 an issue? That's what, $60 right there. Hopefully there'll be no $5 issues because I think this one won. Be $100 worth of friendship. Whoa. Let's see the Scott Koblish one was $4 and the Chris Geruso one was $5. And that's weird. The $5 one comes with a bonus digital special edition, but the $4 one doesn't.
Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
I haven't redeemed any of my digital comics in a while.
I'll just bootleg it. That's what I usually do. I usually come home after I've bought my comics and download the digital version of all of them for no reason, except I think I deserve a digital version of the comics I bought.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm reading them. I just put them in a folder and do nothing with them. Though I was reading a digital version of Meta Barons, the first 3 issues. So I was like, I thought of Paulo reading Meta Barons. Have you read? You've read the Meta Barons, right?
Yes.
And I was just like,
It's getting reprinted here in Portugal, so if I was kind of planning to get it because I wanted to have it in a big format again.
but I was just like, this is so European. Who thinks of this stuff? There is
Well,
no American comic like this nutty Meta Barons.
yeah,
Like,
and the Alejandro Jodorowsky is actually Mexican, and the art and the artist is Argentinian.
like the basic plot behind the story is just like nuts. It's like this sci-fi story takes place on some far distant planet or whatever in this planetary empire. And the one planet invents anti-gravity oil and doesn't tell anyone. And then because of a accident, they reveal their anti-gravity oil to the rest of the universe. So the rest of the universe shows up with ships to steal it. And they have to battle them all, and they do. But then they make a deal with the empire who's running the universe to get some residuals from that anti-gravity oil. But then the first Meta Baron get gets his son a magical horse because there's no horses left anywhere. And then some random thieves on their new planet come in to steal the magical horse. So the first Meta Baron guy ends up killing his son just because he thinks it's one of the thieves. He's not even looking at who the thieves. He's just killing anyone who comes in his sight. And then he gets his genitals blown off and gets metal parts on. And that's about, I think I read the first 3. I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah.
How do you even think of this story? There's nothing about it that makes any sense. It's just a story.
And it all makes perfect sense.
It makes sense within the confines of whatever, but it doesn't make sense in terms of reality in any way, shape, or it's just kind of like, wow, this is wild.
I'm still traumatized by the steak that you can hunt down in the Incal.
Oh yeah,
Because the Meta Baron is in the Incal's universe.
right.
Amazing.
If it was American, the main guy would play a saxophone.
Yeah.
And the cam girl would have a stalker.
Mhm.
That I understand, a cam girl with a stalker. There's no story without that.
Yeah.
There is no
but the-
cam girl story. That's the only cam girl story you can
Yeah.
tell.
There's
You
been
know?
no cam girl story yet created besides a cam girl with a stalker. Because otherwise, they're just sitting by themselves, making spicy content. Where's the story?
Right.
Well, we should let Paulo get to bed. Say
you
good night.
you should try Thorgal. It's fantasy set in Viking times, but it has magic.
Okay, I'll have to try that one. As long as I don't have to read. What was the female Thor named from What If? Thordis.
Thordis.
As long as I don't have to read Thordis again, I'm
No.
okay. That was ridiculous. The name was ridiculously silly. That I don't even remember the comic, but just the name was just Thordis. All right. Let's give the people some confetti,
Yeah.
There you
some
go.
balloons, some lasers before we say good evening. All right. You always need that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, everybody have a good night out there. Any final words from anyone? Nah,
Nah.
we've talked enough. We've
Yeah.
talked enough. Read more comics. We'll steal
Uh-huh.
cartoonist kayfabes.
My friend who went to the Angoulême show in France is going to be on a Brazilian comics channel to show off what he bought there. But you should if you could try to find it, because the channel's name is Eurocomics.
Eurocon.
Yeah, you won't be able to understand anything, but if you can watch it, you'll find the cool books. You'll probably find some Meta Baron's books in there.
Okay, so go to Eurocomics.
There we
You
go.
won't understand the language, but you'll see some cool books. There's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody have a good one out there.
See ya.
We'll
Take care.
catch you next time.